Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
The following video contains content some viewers might find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed here are not facts and are nothing more than entertainment. The views and opinions are not facts and do not represent the views and opinions of Xirtus or our channel, and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of the guests, YouTube, Google, mainstream media, society, or civilization at large, or anybody. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, who knows if these new people will like these long intros. They'll have to get used to it. But welcome, Terror Risk. I don't even know if anyone else is making it tonight, and I don't even mind because Chris is so based. It's awesome to have you, bro. How's it been?
Yo, it's good to be on. And yeah, it's I love the intro. I thought it was like really cool. I was actually gonna ask, who made that? Did you make that?
Dude, so I made the video, but Memory Man, who is in our audience, I don't know if he's here right this second. Yeah, he is. Look at him. Look at this guy. This is the guy who made that music. He makes amazing music. That's just one of his many amazing songs. And it's cool because everyone thinks, Andreas, you're just a robot and you're just going to use robots and exploit them. And, you know, I also exploit my friends.
Yeah.
Memory Man is like a human musician that I love. I gotta say, like, I actually wear his T-shirt unironically around town often. I think more people should listen to my friend's music. That's my pitch. You make music too, right?
Yeah, I do make music. But it's fucked up because I actually don't even listen to music anymore.
Yeah,
all I do is listen to NPR.
I have like a rule. I only listen to NPR when I'm like working on a 3D printer or like taking apart a computer. You know what I mean? Like that can be great. Like you all of a sudden you're learning about how certain kinds of crickets will wear like these hollowed out shells in order to make these echo chambers that make them sound louder so that the female crickets will think they're like the bigger crickets and they'll breed with them. I mean, that can be a fun time.
That is pretty cool. You know, you seem to be like really knowledgeable about like a lot of different things.
Again, that was the example of me like listening to NPR in the background. You know, like I don't know if I always pay attention to all of the things, but little things like that are kind of interesting. But sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say you're absolutely right. I listen to NPR for similar reasons, just because there's a lot of like little fun junk knowledge that you pick up. But I also think it's like one of the most unintentionally funniest things sometimes. Like, It was like an hour-long segment one time. It's like, how bad is being fat really? And I was like, wow, they really they did that.
Dude, yeah. Well, sometimes NPR is not based, but like it's basic in a really interesting way. Like you got to understand how cool it is. By the way, Travis, thank you for the memberships. We love you. Just randomly, let's just do a little bit of this for the feeling of it.
Hell's yeah, vibing out.
This is like the more psychedelic Korean experience, I think.
Wow, that's funny.
You're like, no, not that.
No, I was gonna say Korea needs probably some psychedelic injection.
Oh yeah. Because we could probably get into that too. Like what happened? Because there used to be really psychedelic culture, and then I feel like after the Japanese Olympics, 2007. And then the Chinese chemical scroll, the forbidden scroll list of all the research chemicals and everything, that something very psychedelic about Korea and Asia in general kind of went with it, right? Because you can remember like right before K-pop, at the very beginning, GD and Top clearly come from some sort of a psychedelic experience that Korea is trying to forget.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because everyone the whole world came into contact with the Beatles. They watched literally the transformation of like just a regular boy pop band into, they explored psychedelics, and then they saw what they saw. They came into contact with, and they started making different things, which even like, a Korean boy in the country would like be able to like see and be like, wow, that's pretty profound seeming. But I think one of the big problems with, actually, no, it's not even a problem. I was going to say like what you were just referring to with like how like, Eastern culture was always engaged with like really trippy mysticism.
Yeah.
But I feel like that all comes from like the Indians anyway, which they're part of the whole like Indo-European, I think, lineage, or what I feel
Indo-Aryan, right?
Indo-Aryan. So it started from like the first horse tamers in humanity started in a specific spot, and they just kept going east and east and east, and eventually, I guess that kind of tells you that it's all part of the same lineage when it comes to like really ancient mystic traditions and stuff.
We've had a Gun Wu on the show before. I was trying to get him on, but I think he's like missing in action. I hope he's doing okay. But he was talking about this idea of the Korean connection to Russia and Slavic culture, because there is Russia's huge, Korea is touching it, and you start to look at the interesting correlations in culture. There is the Russians also have like the Indo-Aryan connection as well. They have Vedic stuff that influences their Greco-Orthodox Christianity. They have saints and things that are actually, if you look back, are descendant from like the pagan traditions, which are really descendant from the, you know, the people that were in charge at that time. So it's interesting to me because we think of, you know, the Indian, the connection, but also there is like this kind of Slavic connection to Korean culture. Like they have a very similar belief in like the moon being kind of descendant from the moon. There's like an ancient kind of like queen, you know, there's some really interesting things that kind of also,
the pantheon.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much the pantheon is like relevant today in Korea with the amount of wars and cultural changes that it's been through in the last few hundred years. But I feel like it is interesting to Korean people that there is a resurgence of interest in like the native indigenous beliefs, right?
I mean, when it comes to like the OGs, not the OGs, but like the bosses of like East Asian culture, I always like generally look to China, and when I look at China, it's like I look at how they went through their phase of like violently trying to like weed out like spiritualism, any kind of like metaphysical tradition that's not strictly materialist and provable with material science at the time, and like literally persecuting it. I think about that and I'm like, honestly, it was probably on some level, I mean, I don't think it was good, but it was probably on some level in some context necessary, because like I think like, I mean, if you talk about like new age terminology, if all of China was quote unquote ascended or enlightened, that could be like a huge problem for like people in charge, you know, like.
Oh yeah, no, it's crazy now. Like the amount of Chinese people that feel like they're too good to work. I mean, I'm not against it. It's just really interesting because you have to remember, like, I mean, I used to do interviews of Chinese kids that were coming to school, like from China for the first time, like 2008, 2007, you know, and ask them about like the difference here and the difference there in their culture and what they are looking for. And what do you think you got? One of my favorite questions was like, what do you think you brought with you that'll make it, you know, that'll make it possible for you, like to succeed at your goals here, you know? And one of the things is like, well, you know, Chinese culture is a lot about sacrifice. Was one of the answers I remember really loving. The idea that so many people sacrificed so I could get here. And that's such an interesting thing because the idea was like that for so many people in America too. Like you sacrifice so your kids have a better house. In China, they sacrificed and worked so hard that their kids would have a better future. But now you've got a bunch of kids who are like, well, do I have that better future? And isn't the best of it just not working to death for the system? So all these kids are like, I'm just going to tune out, you know, tune out of society. Like how 1960s Timothy Leary is that China's going to tune out.
Turn on, tune in, drop out.
Yeah, right.
I feel like most of the great awakenings happen like after you get like for the first time, like initially hit with a huge sense of what's the word, like holistic view of like reality, you know, when you realize that there, you know, you're just a part of something, you know, bigger. It's, I guess it's kind of a cliche on some level, but until you like viscerally embody that truth, because some people could just like observe that truth but then live as if they're like, you know, completely ignorant of it.
Perfect example, CMA, embodying truth, CMA for 1999. That's a pretty bright orange. I really love that. Thank you so much. That's really cool.
Yeah. No, it's cool that you have a supportive community. I'm happy to be a part
Dude,
of it.
I'm surprised. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, what is even like, is this my life? Like, because I felt the thing that I really love though is like people are like, oh, look, there's like a bunch of new people that are watching, but I haven't really noticed it yet. Like, exactly. It shows up in like the feed later. So really I have my dedicated followers still. And like, so it's really more about like the members still to me, because those are the people that are watching and paying attention. Although I do feel like it's funny that I spent so much time trying to make videos about like truth, and they've been suppressed for 5 years. Shocking. And then I make a video about a cartoon series, a musical, like 2 minute long about a cat. And then that's, you know, like YouTube's like, don't you get it, bro? Like, don't you get what you like? They're trying so hard to like beat me logically to understand. I could just be doing nonsense and they would be happy with it. But anytime we talk about deep things, it's more interesting. So
yeah. I mean, like when I the literal in the literal about me of like the terrorist YouTube page, it's like the most unmarketable podcast in the world, because I do think it's like if you are talking sincerely, being authentic and being like truly honest about your views about things, that is pretty fucking unmarketable, you know? Like that's like there's nothing sexy or marketable about it. It's literally just raw, you know, and it's gonna rub some people the wrong way, and it's gonna like turn other people onto the right things. And I guess like in that sense, I really have no regrets, because it's not like it's like I know my intentions, you know, when it comes to just podcasting, and I definitely know I'm not trying to like sell people shit, and I definitely don't view it as like a prospective source of income.
Today's episode was brought to you by Procter and Gamble. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, if the opportunity ever came up, I mean, maybe that would be like a different case. That would be like,
God, if they asked me to sell Pop-Tarts, I would literally lose sleep over it. I would have to think about it. I would be like, normally everything I stand against, but money, you know, so I get it. I get exactly what people are going through. Yeah, I see it every day.
I mean, it's more insidious. I mean, that's simple. It's like if they were to tell me like, oh, I'll give you $1 million if you wear Puma while doing a podcast, I'll be like, all right, whatever. But if they said like, oh no, you got to push like dick pills, you know, you got to push like erectile dysfunction, like literally dick hardening pills onto.
I mean, a lot of the listeners are truckers, and like I'll do shows with Sam Tripoli, and then like I'll listen back to the episode, and in between it, I'll be like, and that brings us to the Jesuit. It's like, first, everybody make sure you buy these new dick pills that'll make you really, if you're driving across the country, you're gonna need these blue weed made with goat weed, and it's like, okay, I mean, good for them. You know?
I had a really bad conspiracy. Well, it was bad because it would hit people in sensitive places. But I was like, imagine a company that makes a dick hardening pill, but the side effect is you lose your hair. But they also have a hair growing supplement, but it gives you erectile dysfunction.
Oh yeah.
Like that would be like the most evil business model, but it'd be brilliant. Like
that is basically, that's a real thing. And then there's like the whole thing with like Hims is nuts, bro. Like, and Hims and Hers, the whole idea. Is it Hers? Is that the other one? Like they do. I
never heard of Hers.
So
I just
Hers are like the manic depressive, like they're like SSRIs.
Oh no.
What is even happening here? So like now you've got like erection, but you're losing hair, but your hair is making you have problems with your sex libido, and then your girlfriend, if you have one, or some girl you're meeting,
she's got like borderline personality disorder.
This is just perfect. Really, I think they figured it out.
Yep.
I mean, like the thing with medication, though, there's so many people that are convinced that their lives are made better by it. So, what do you think about like pain suppression or like augmentation in general? Do you think that there's room for it still, or do we have to get to the root? Like in every case, I mean, I don't want to tell people that they shouldn't ever be able to take SSRIs, even though like that seems like my guttural response. I don't, you know.
I feel like for me, a lot of it has to do with upbringing.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time, I think, when I was like really little, I went to this very briefly, this rich white private school in Staten Island, New York, and
that's fun.
Yeah, I didn't last long there, but there was a point when like I got into like one little scuffle with another kid, and I ended up having to see a shrink, and the shrink said like, oh, I should be on like Ritalin or something, whatever like classic 90s brain drug they had. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, my family didn't really, they didn't make me take it, and I don't even know if I would have been good about taking it anyway. Later on in life, I was like prescribed, after like a bad event in my life, I was prescribed Lexapro. Never fucking took it.
Yeah.
Never fucking took it. Cause I was just like, I don't, cause to me, here's how I view drugs. And I'm not saying anyone watching this should view drugs this way, but the way I view drugs is they're a avenue for a good time. So it's like, if they're an avenue for a good time, A, I can never make any drug a habit. B, I can't like get fixated on one single drug, because that's going to like really lead to trouble. And C, I can never use my principle for myself is I'll never use a drug to like run away from problems. I'll only use a drug to augment an already good situation. Like, if I'm in a bad situation, to me, that's like an inappropriate time to be fucked up. Like that's when I should really be sober and really, really grounded. And
you're sorry, you were reminding me of something. Like you were partially, like you should tell me like your story for the audience in general. But like we talked a lot when I first met you. This guy's wielding a katana, running around New York City. I mean, he's online, but still, I get the idea that you're into your katana and you study martial arts, right? For discipline. Is that right?
Actually, no. I mean, it wasn't that serious at first. I started swordsmanship. I've been doing martial arts since I was like really young, like karate, like 6.
Nice.
From 6 to like 12, and then I just stopped. But when I was like around 2017, like I think like I was seeing someone long distance, and like I was in the airport, and I was like, I don't know, something. I think it was just pure intuition. I was on my laptop, bored on the internet in an airport, waiting for my flight, and I was like, I think I'm going to try to learn like some form of Japanese swordsmanship. Like I've always wanted to. I've always fantasized about it as a kid. I love like anime and shit. I was like, maybe
yeah.
And then I think about, and there was like a huge stigma at the time because there's plenty of memes about like American white boys like trying to study the blade and all that. It's like, you know what? Well, at least I'm not a white dude. So
yeah, dude. Sometimes that you gotta be grateful about that.
So you know what? I was like, fuck it. I will study the blade. And I served different schools because like my first instinct was kendo. Everyone knows kendo. Kendo is like the default like thing you think of. But then like I discovered kenjutsu. I was like, what the fuck what's kenjutsu? And they were saying how like kendo do is the way and ken is the sword. So it's like the way of the sword, whereas jutsu it means more of like the art, the technique. So it's like sword art. And kenjutsu studies more about like they concern themselves more with actual sword study, compared to using like bamboo fencing swords. So kenjutsu is like studying more with like actual with either wooden swords or like actual
straight up
swords.
blades.
Yeah. So yeah, we had to do that a lot, cutting. And you know what? That looks easier than it actually is. When I first did it, I was so upset. I was like, why do I fucking suck at it? And it took like a while for me to like get like decent at it.
I'm gonna bring in American. Oh, sorry, wrong button.
No,
I'm gonna bring in American Time Machine right here. What's up, American Time Machine?
What up?
Nice
we were just
to see you. Sorry.
We were just talking about the way of the blade and jutsu, but also we had brought up manic depression and pharmaceutical drugs and things like that. And I was gonna lead into this thought that I'd seen this documentary about 2008 called "Does Your Soul Have a Cold?" Are you familiar with that one?
No.
It's all about how the Japanese did not have pharmaceutical antidepressant drugs, and they had not even a word for psychological illness. They called it instead of depression, they called
possession.
It having a soul cold. Was the 20th century, from possession to soul cold, right? And so if your soul has a cold, what do you do? Like, so this is all pharmaceutical companies had to come up with a word to replace possession. And they're like, well, yeah, we make medicine for soul colds. And now soul cold medicine is one of the most popular things in Japan. They're making tons of money off the Japanese with SSRIs and antidepressants and all of this stuff.
Funny. Did you know that like right around the time sugar production first got industrialized, like doctors and scientists would explain like teeth falling out of people's mouths, saying like, oh, there's ghosts haunting people's mouths.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's probably true too. Like,
well, I was gonna say,
brain,
I was gonna say that's funny because you can't disprove that,
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I get the feeling that there's a lot of things like that where they say, okay, these people were so primitive because they can't actually see what's going on. So I can see this is, but they don't really understand what's going on. Whereas in the old days, they're like, the meta was the thing. Like, well, I can't really show you exactly where it is, but there's a gimp in your brain and he's mining for emeralds. It's like, okay, it's like if the treatment works, who am I to argue? I think that tends to be the way.
Well,
but the treatment's not working with soul colds, right? Like Japan doesn't look like they're super. When I think of Japan, I don't think of like super manic, happy people all the time, the way I might have before soul colds, right?
Yeah. Fuck. I mean, soul colds. Like it's the whole concept of like using a pill to like solve some mental malady. I mean, to me, it's like. It's kind of fucked up because like the word you used was like a guttural reaction. It's like, yeah, I have the same guttural reaction. I'm like, no, I don't think that's actually the way. But it's such a touchy thing because if you were to, there's like a stigma against like voicing your opinion on that. You're like, I don't know, I don't think meds are the answer. And then they're like, oh no, what are you talking about? They saved my life, blah blah blah. And how could you argue against another person's experience? So. But that makes it like so insidious because if it is in fact like a predatory model, to like really just ultimately capitalize on people suffering, then they built a really perfect system. Like I can't, no single person could ever defeat that. That's just now at that point, the only answer is self-mastery. And I say self-mastery is the only game in life worth playing because we can all play it and we can all win. So it's like, that's my answer. It's like, if you're really leaning towards like SSRIs and stuff, chances are you believe in a future for yourself where you will never feel anxiety ever again. You will never feel another day of stress. If you could just get to this point, if you could just get to this one point, you will never ever feel another day of this crazy. No, that's bullshit. You shouldn't You shouldn't look at it like that. You know, like I don't believe so anyway. I think that's the wrong way to look at it.
Kurt, you deal with antidepressants all the time. Not that you take them, but I know you go on dates. What do you think about all that?
That's a great observation. Hey, the world is crazy. That's the first good thing to say. Anytime,
which is why they need pills. No, I'm sorry. Keep going.
Well, like I don't know, kind of on a similar subject. Now, apparently, there's a lot of news about an anti-obesity drug.
Oh yeah,
that's coming out. I forget what it's even
Check
called.
Your fridges. Do you guys live with your mom? Check the back of the fridge. If she's got one of those like syringes that they like have in a little Ziploc bag and they're shooting each other up in their tummies, dude.
You got to check the ice cream. The moms love ice cream. That's their thing. Moms,
yeah.
I love ice cream.
So I love ice cream too.
I love ice cream.
So I think a lot of these things, it's like we're jumping through so many hoops to try to solve problems that, well, when we could be taking such a different route. So like with the deal with obesity, there's probably two main causes of obesity. Well, I mean, there's the primary cause, which is like indirectly, primary, but indirectly, it's capitalism. But also,
we should really have a show called "It's Always Capitalism."
I mean, I have a take on the food industry with obesity, but yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you saying?
Oh, yeah, like I think just due to the nature of the way our food is produced as well, that might be somewhere where you're going with that. But like our food generally isn't very healthy. There's a lot of additives, especially if you go like shop at the big chain stores. I try to avoid any copyright issues, but big chain stores. That some may sound like rhyme with Shawl Mart. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of terrible additives in human growth hormone and crap, and that's probably not going to be great for your digestive system.
But I will say,
go ahead.
Oh yeah, okay. So just to interject, I will say that I don't think we got here strictly nefariously. I do think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that America had to solve mass starvation, basically. During the Great Depression, we didn't have enough food, and we needed to figure out a way to stop that. So I think I forgot who exactly it was, but one of our scientists literally borrowed military weapons technology, like bomb technology, to invent a way to artificially fertilize soil, to basically like artificially inject nitrogen into soil, so you could basically 10x your crop yield. Now, like, that's great, you know, in the immediate moment, that's awesome, you know, like less people starving in the streets, less people dying of starvation, fucking awesome. Now fast forward to like the 2020s, now we're in a case where it's like very, very rich food companies like have a very high incentive. They have way too much food, they're producing way too much food, and it's low quality food, because like, you know, when it comes to like food quality of like organic resources, you have to give it time to actually play out that natural cycle of decay, like composting and fertilization and all that stuff. If you kind of like force that, like, yeah, it'll be, it's like a band-aid, it's like a quick fix, yeah, it'll work, but over time it's like just cutting corners.
Hey man, I agree. I grew up in California, so like I had all these thoughts about organics, you know, and like,
I mean, this put farmers out of work. This put like actual farmers you'd find out in the West Coast.
First off, organic is a lie, right? Because like the organic label, once they found out that farmers were trying to do this idea of like non-pesticide, like healthy, chemo-free, really chemical treatment-free foods and biodynamic farming and all these things like that, it was more complicated, but it only emerged because we talked about this at one point, there was a blight in California, the apple moth and the fruit fly, and they radiated the Mexican fruit fly in order to give a sterilized fruit fly so that they would breed and they wouldn't have eggs. Unfortunately, these radiated fruit flies turned out not to be sterile. So they had these like very virile Mexican fruit flies that they released on California, and it just decimated California agriculture. And the only way that they could rebound was to sell their farms to big enclosure movement systems that were associated with Gray Davis, Jerry Brown, and Newsom's father, who had deals in China, which is why Chinese agriculture has destroyed Gilroy garlic, and you import this bleached garlic that's grown south of nuclear power plants and battery acid production plants for the Prius, so that they can drain their soils of all of those chemicals into the food and they can export it. Which you'll see even worse examples. You go to Bolivia and the rice, right? The rice in Bolivia from China or the noodles is all, it's like, it's dangerous to eat because it's coming from the worst parts of China.
Yo, so much of our problems and shit goes back to food. It really
does.
It really points to the food. I mean, which is to me, that's like, it's highly spiritual. It's a borderline spiritual thing, you know, because it's what we're made out of, right? It's what we ingest into our bodies. And I'm not saying like, you know, I'm a strict believer in like this the Taoism stuff, but I stopped eating like beef and pork. Just
that was like the most, like, I've never heard anyone say like, I'm not a Taoist or nothing, but yeah, I'm kind of a Taoist. I get that. I feel that way about the flow.
I'm not a Taoist or nothing, but I stopped eating beef or pork because like I watched this interview with this monk, and he goes, he put this concept before me. He was like, this idea of chi networks and how different animals have different, you know, have robust or like, you know, more or less chi networks. And he was saying how like bigger animals like cows and pigs probably have more complex chi networks, which means they have a fear network, like a more robust fear network, and they could build more fear energy. So when you consume that, you consume their fear energy,
which is also just literally like even beyond the woo of magic, like in terms of taking the hormones of an animal and
biology.
Like this is literally why we do why they do fox hunts, right? They'll start making this horrifying noise in the morning, chase a fox. Once he's like caught, chase him again all day long, so he's just filled with adrenaline, and then you kill him when he finally gives up on his life. He's just a battery of adrenaline. And
furthermore, not even just biologically, which I think is totally valid, but also psychologically. See, even if I don't believe in the Taoism, I believe I have a subconscious. I believe in my ability to empathize with certain beings more than others, you know, like I do believe in that. So I mean, I do believe in like doing psychic damage to myself without even realizing it. You know, if I'm going to engage in the consumption of something that I know that in the back of my head was slaughtered a certain way and kept in certain conditions, and I'm going to be like, all right, you know, like I know this is going to hit me in some form or another in the long term, and like little by little, bit by bit, every day. So yeah, that's, you know,
sometimes also with fruit, like, so if I get like fruit and vegetables, like when I lived in Peru, it felt so different because you've got minerals from the Amazon with like gold and silver and copper that are like in the dirt, and you get carrots the size of watermelons, and it feels real. It feels real. That's the best way to describe it. When you eat food, I'll go to some of these, you know, decent chain stores, organic vegetables and things will taste to me like I'm eating in the Matrix. It's like this thing was like, it's like equal and identical to the other one. It's perfect, quote unquote. It's exactly what like your body needs to survive, but it doesn't feel nearly the same as if I got the carrot from nature, right? Like, I don't have a problem with like vertical agriculture, hydroponic agriculture. I think it's aeroponics, and I think that's amazing. Like, but clearly something's different when you're growing something using these fluorescent lights than if you're in the sunlight. You know, we know
absolutely. But interestingly enough, here's my take on like, you know, the quality of food and stuff, which I think is a very big concern, and people should be concerned with the quality of their food. But I feel like what, for me personally, I'm not going to say this is going to work for other people, but what really solved a lot of problems at once, and I don't even know if I'm going to keep doing this forever, but for like about a year and a half now, I've been only eating once a day. Like literally, I just eat like one meal a day. So it's like, yeah, I could eat garbage here and there, you know, and sometimes I would arbitrarily break my 1 meal a day rule. Yeah. But you know, like just
Jack Dorsey is all in the 1 meal a day thing. I'll do that often. It depends on like my energy like level and what I'm trying, how much energy I need.
Yeah, there's trade-offs for sure. Like I noticed, like, because I've always been a very active person, like, you know, as a martial artist, as a cyclist and all that shit. Like, but I noticed like when I started the 1 meal a day lifestyle, I was like, this and it is a lifestyle, and
it
impacts
like, your energy.
Yeah, and it was something I had to contend with, but I'm glad I was able to like kind of balance it out.
Northside Gorilla asked about the thoughts on the carnivore diet. I used to eat nothing but carnivores, but it was exhausting. So
I want to try it. I want to try, but I feel like, yeah, it's a process. But you know what? I do feel like if you're already on like a 1 meal a day thing, then eating like a keto diet is probably a lot easier to do, you know, because you only have to worry about like eating once a day anyway. So, but you better eat like a lot of fucking, you know, like protein. What is it? Like three hard boiled eggs, fucking like, I don't know, a steak, a salmon steak, a chicken fajita. I don't know, like
those all sound good. Yeah. Good hashtags there.
Yeah. Oh my God.
This is also the test. If you can understand it, then AI is doing all right.
I heard something about like the color of something, but I don't know. I mean, it's I think I think it's cool what you were showing me before that was infusing like a psychedelic aspect to like Korean folk music. I was like, yes,
that's the future.
That's what should have happened. You know, right. When I was younger, I was stupid. I was like, Korea needs punk rock. I was like, no, nobody fucking needs punk rock.
Yeah, Malaysia got punk rock. Look what happened to them, right?
Yeah, yeah. Nobody needs punk rock. They do need like some psychedelic rock. That's good. That's good shit.
Dude.
Honestly, you know what I think about punk? This is going to be very controversial, and this take might get a lot of hate, but I don't care. I think punk rock was invented by the FBI as like a genetic shredder to weed out people from the breeding pool, like people of like ugly people of rebellious like.
The only argument I have is it was MI5 and MI7. It wasn't really the FBI.
Yeah. It's definitely a product of the government to like get like really troublesome people to kill themselves. Because like true punks, the logical conclusion is you either end up incarcerated, dead, or like virtually sterile. You know, like if you're a hardcore punk, not like a poser. If you're a hardcore punk, then yeah, there's no real positive outcome for you except like just dying to spite everything.
Why do you think there's like, because it does feel like that's Tavistock, right? This idea, you know, about Tavistock Institute. We talked to you earlier about the Beatles, and there's this idea. By the way, has anyone heard that Paul McCartney song, "Temporary Secretary"? That's like the greatest. That is the greatest Paul McCartney song I've ever heard. And I thought,
sounds cool.
As soon as it started, I thought I was listening to like a new Kanye West song. I swear, it was like the craziest like Kraftwerk beat, like it was out of control. But you find out like the Tavistock Institute was majorly instrumental in the Beatles and a number of other kind of British propaganda. And what do they teach you to do? Kind of similar to the Grateful Dead's turn on, drop out, all that kind of thing. Tune in, turn on, drop out.
Turn on, tune in, drop out. Yeah.
I'm trying. I mean, what do I know about psychedelics? But the point is, these guys were all trying so hard to make this culture that was all about self-destruction. And it seems really weird, you know, at the end of the day. Why do you think, I mean, what is there, is it just pure death cult evil? Or is there some practical reason they're like, live young, like burn out fast, you know, have all your fun until you die now?
Yeah. I mean, also it's been proven that like international intelligence agencies have literally had their fingers in the music, like major music industries,
and they're doing a lot of good. Thank you for the new subscribers. Sorry, I forgot.
Wait, I don't know. You just muted yourself.
Yeah, I was just making sure I didn't say anything else too bad. No, it's okay.
You're good. Yeah. So you know, I'm just glad that. I'm just glad that, you know, I guess music is still a thing. You know, I'm glad no government or dictator came out and said it's time to kill music. We're done with this. This is too bad of an influence on humanity.
What are you saying, Kurt? I saw that.
I don't know. Well, I mean, it's interesting because like now it's like there's such an interesting way to view the entire music industry right now. Is like, think about every day I go like into work, and right now, you know, work's just fine. It's great. It's dandy. It's whatever. But we have like this radio station, and it's called, yeah, it's tiny. It's tiny enough I can probably talk about it, but it's called The Blend. And it's pretty much just that type of music that you would slowly just like drill screws into your brain to, you know, just over time, you know, like if you were just like on a 20-year death sentence in a tiny room, it was like that's how you would slowly kill yourself, is just by
Chinese water torture for dogs.
Exactly. So it's like a lot of these like love songs from the 80s that have like, you know, 4 lyrics in the chorus, and like I could probably think of a few if I just sit here and like think, but I don't even want to think about it. When you think about like how bland like the actual like music is, and whether or not it's like substantial or it's experimental, it's like all the music is just pre-approved, and it's all designed. We are a business. I work in a business, so it's just designed to satiate people. Yeah. And so it's like, yeah, we have an entire industry that's being propped up by a lot of money and a lot of channels of money, but the whole idea is just satiation. And like I think that comes back to having, you know, the cultural hegemony of just like reinforcing the narratives that we're of course indoctrinated to believe and want to perpetuate. But a lot of them, of course, it's that weird dichotomy of like how much do you criticize it, but at the other end of it, like how much of that boring structure ensures that we can even question the system or have new things spring out of that. So yeah, I don't know. Like, it's so easy to get critical of everything that's going on in music and in general, and how like how much it's mostly built to reinforce the narrative. And I think the main dominant narrative is, of course, consumption. And
Wait, I got a question for you guys. Have you ever heard of Rick Rubin?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yo, so all right, because I mean, we could talk about like spiritual awakenings and stuff later, because I feel like that is a threshold within. I don't know about like past generations, but I do know like within the context of this generation, there is a very novel threshold that people cross from like one aspect of, I guess you could call it a spiritual awakening, a Kundalini awakening, just that one day where you're like, holy shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the left brain moment.
I guess so. Like, where is it the left brain moment or the right brain moment, or?
It depends on like, I think this is an interesting thing about musicians. So what I was thinking you were going towards is that Rick Rubin's not a musician, and that's why people love his music. So like, there's a lot of people I know who are like, I love music, I want to make songs like this, and then their parents are like, bam, send them to like a musical school, beat them into like knowing chromatone and all this stuff, and they come out all like making music that like I like it because I'm insane, but like normal pop music is not like plebeians don't want to hear musicians' music, right? Like it's not like a musician's like, did you hear how the pentameter changed? Did you notice like that how I used like a sharp note where you couldn't use a sharp note? Like that's fun for me. But for normal people, they don't care.
Okay.
And they want to hear like the same thing. They're like, I like that jingle. I want to hear that jingle for 2 minutes.
No. I totally agree with you. I agree with you. But honestly, like I think there's also like another dimension of like what you said. I love that term, musicians' music, because that is like a real thing.
I'm cursed, man. That's like
honestly
the kind of music I like.
When I think of like musicians' music, like as a person who I don't know if I'm a musician, but I make music. I like
count to me.
So what I do is like I like to to me the music that I like as a musician, not just as a passive listener to music, because as a passive listener to music, I like anything.
Yeah.
But like the shit that really interests me is like the source shit, like the oldest known music. For example, when I think of like when I found out that, did you know that the oldest form of Western music is actually like religious music? Like they're like Gregorian chants and stuff.
Totally.
And when I discovered the structure of Gregorian chants and how it's like, it's basically they started with one voice and then they added with the second counterpoint, and then they added the third voice, which created the basis for what we know as like chords and stuff. That's all crazy shit to me.
Yeah.
The idea of how like also
Euclid.
And that music back then, the original, the oldest remembered music, it was like it's literally made to spiritually uplift you.
One of my favorites is the Song of SOQUEL. You know that one? The song.
No, I don't know any of them by name. The only reason why I know this lineage is because of a music theory course I took, and it was like a fundamental music theory course, and it was literally just about the history of like the oldest known form of like music as we know it today. Where did it come? Like where did that structure come from? And a lot of it was from like that original holy aspect of like
I made I think it's either on the Unknown album is the one, or Ave Helena is the one. No,
yeah, but I got a question for you guys.
This is all classic. This is all like medieval chants and Gregorian music that I've done digitally.
But before you play this, while this plays,
I won't play it. I was gonna show it.
No, if you did play it, I just want to ask a question. What do you think is the first song written by humans?
I don't know about the first song written by humans, but the oldest one I know of is Song of SOQUEL, and it is a Greco Hellenistic song. It's predating Christianity. It predates Pythagoras, and it's a great song. It's a great song, but it's a banger. It's a banger. It's like na 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 na. I can't even do it, but it's a great song. The deal is that it's like Orpheus is going down to Hades to see his uncle who's death, and telling him like, I need my girlfriend back. And his aunt is there, Persephone, right? Who's kidnapped Springly. You know, she at the end of spring and like during the fall, she's down there.
She got R-worded.
Yeah. But then she ends up loving the song, and so that encourages Hades to leave. So the song is that good. It's the song that you would play to get your girlfriend's life back from death itself. It's pretty good. Song of SOQUEL. But I don't know if it's the oldest song, right? Because that's a good question. Like, what do you?
Well, there is a quote. The quote that the first music is the human heartbeat, the sound of the human heartbeat.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was like, that was a brain blast for me. I was like, that's pretty good. Like, that's a good one. I would tell my kids that, like, the first music was the human heartbeat. You know, it's like very sappy, very good.
Makes sense.
In your classes, did they cover like Hildegard von Bingen, or probably underrated in history, I guess. Like now, like
you are such a hipster.
No. Well, I didn't take a class. I took an online course on music theory. It was like literally on Coursera, and I just went through it. I completed the course, and they mostly talked about like the contemporary composers like Bach and Mozart and and briefly touched upon it. But it was mostly focused on like the Western canon of music, I guess. You know, like.
And I think that's the problem with the structure of how we even educate people in the West. It's like
we
skip over such large portions of history, and it's so
like Eastern music is very different. You know, when you look at the history.
Well, when you mentioned the heartbeat, like all of a sudden we were talking about like European music, and my mind goes to Africa, right? Because it becomes all completely different thing that you're thinking about is the beat. I don't know, the bass player gets not enough respect, right? I think we all agree on that.
I think the drummer is always the most important.
Keeps the beat.
Yeah, the drummer is really the dungeon master of any musical thing. Like, honestly,
it's a good description. Actually,
the drummer is the one who like keeps everything. He's a timekeeper. He's the time god. So yeah, I think people take drummers for granted, especially now. Like, I think that's why like drummers are the first ones assaulted with like music technology. You know, it's because the drummers were so necessary and they were so scarce, even because
replace them first. Yeah.
Well, I look at like being a musician in a city like New York. I'm like, the reason why Staten Island, out of the 5 boroughs of New York City, produces like the best bands and the actual like acts with like actual bands is because you can't have a band in fucking Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, because what are you gonna do? Start a fucking apartment, or you're gonna meet like once or twice a week in some shitty studio place? No, it has to happen organically. Like you guys have to have like go to your boy's house in the basement and like smoke weed, cutting school. It's like, yo, let's jam, and he gets on his drum set because like mom's at work and dad's gone, and you have your guitar, your friend has his bass, and you guys just like jam for hours and hours until you can't. That's how bands start. Not this like artificial like, oh, I'm a scuzzy guy from Jersey, I'm a preppy boy from Boston, and we're all living in Brooklyn, and let's all start a band and become the next hit. Like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, fuck you. It's not gonna fucking work. There's no chemistry. It's contrived bullshit. No, if you're native from New York, the only way to start a band is literally either be from
in a church in upstate. I think get like an abandoned building.
But from New York City, like out of the 5 boroughs, it has to be like Staten Island or Jersey.
Yeah, and Jersey has got a weird emphasis to it too, because everyone, like similar to like Dungeon Master drummers, like people will judge Jersey for what it is, but there's a lot of cool that comes out of Jersey. I mean, just because it allows like
Jersey's awesome.
Jersey's cool. I thought you were gonna be. I was like, dude, I know I'm not from the East Coast.
Jersey's underrated as fuck. As a New Yorker, I see a lot of New Yorkers hate on Jersey. Not so much because they know better.
It's just the principle.
Like, Jersey's awesome. Jersey came out with so much cool shit. Jersey came out with cool movies.
It has the potential too for like, because like kids raised in Jersey with their garages. It's the same thing with Silicon Valley having garage bands and garage tech companies. Like there's something about that your parents are saying, look, I kind of want you to take a risk right now while you still can before you get out there. And not everyone can do that,
And let's admit, like, there's something special about living in a shitty city where you don't have to fear for your life. Like, if you could walk around in your city saying, I live in a shitty city, but you don't have to worry about getting shot, you have something really special and nuanced on your hands. Like, you got to take advantage of it. It's like, first of all, why is this shitty? Sing about that. Write poems about it. Write art about it. Because you can without getting killed. Like, do it. Like,
We talked earlier about AI too, and I think that's something that's interesting. Like Kurt is paranoid. I mean, I did it again. American Time Machine, one of my favorite musicians of all time in space, and he does all kinds of cool albums using technology now. He's an amazing guitarist, but he's also using, what do you call it? What are some of the programs you're using that you like pipe things together?
Like modular
yeah, like virtual modular synths,
virtual
that,
modular synths. Yeah, that's awesome. No, I love that because first of all, like as a DAW guy, like as people would say, like as a music producer, they would get into these stupid arbitrary arguments like, oh, you use Fruity Loops, you use Ableton, you use Reason, haha, you're a whatever.
Like, what does that mean? Yeah.
To me, it's all the same shit. Like if you know it, if you actually know what you're doing as a music producer, you could look at all these like programs and you're like, you guys are literally doing the same fucking thing. It's stupid to say, like, I mean, especially at this level of technology when it comes to software,
everything's
like,
so proficient.
It's like there's no point. I mean, trust me, like you're not good enough to like stretch the limits of Ableton to make it, or Fruity Loops to make a difference between either. Like,
but next year with like, so this is the thing with AI and stuff like that. So like a lot of what Kurt makes is made by man. Like he's using machines to do it still. But it's interesting to me that like some of my favorite artists using AI, a lot of artists hate AI, but the artists I know that are okay with it are like the best artists. And they're the ones who are thinking, like I was saying earlier with like AI cartoons, I'll show like Tad Stones or some 60-year-old animator from Disney who is just blown away because like, wow, you mean like all those years I couldn't work on my passion project because of all the excuses that they made, and I had to keep working on this nonsense. This is really huge that we can give people the capacity. Yeah.
So my take on it is like my when it comes to, I use AI to make music. I'll just say it, full disclosure, but I don't use it in like the conventional sense what most people would think. It's like, oh, so I don't just like, I don't actually make new music with AI. See, the thing about producing music is there's like a series of phases.
Yeah.
There's actually making this stuff, and then once you make it, and then you have to mix it, then you have to master it. Like that's how you actually, because I don't just like want to make a song. I want to make a song that could compete professionally with like a song that Sony produced. Like how can I make my own homegrown shit sound that good in quality?
Right.
So what before like AI tools were really accessible, what I used to do is I had to learn how to use the tools given to me to such a degree where I could like mix and master everything from the stereo spectrum all the way to the frequency spectrum. Like every little sound was carved and shaped, just like wood carving. It's literally like carpentry, digital carpentry. You're carving sound blocks to fit together like a puzzle.
And each peak of each, frequency. Yeah.
And I used to have to do that all by hand. but now I don't, because now I have like fucking like ozone tools, and ozone tools used to like make the job easier, but now they actually integrated like AI aspects.
But ozone's still something where knowing how to do it makes it sound better.
Well, first of all, if you like, you wouldn't really even know about ozone unless you're actually kind of indoctrinated into the concept of mixing and mastering. So but the fact that even as a person who's like deeply enmeshed, even I can't escape like the influence of AI, because as an ozone user, I'm going to use those automation tools where it's like, click that button, press play, let it hear it, and it's going to be like, now I'm going to fix your shit for you, in like no time. And what that's not to say that I still can't use my own mixing techniques. I'll still use my own and then just add another instance. It's like, now check that for me, like be the second set of ears for me and fix whatever I missed, and it'll do it perfectly.
Right. That the intro song for Sync Tank I do yesterday, that is AI, but it's not, like it's all, I hand do everything, but I use physical modeling synthesis, which studied human voices in order to make a human voice, which I could control. And then this is like before the new technology where you can just do it quickly. So I was doing it with MIDI, setting up what tones and peaks I want her voice and how long I want each note to be. And it's crazy because again, these are step by step. We're getting to the point now.
You think that's crazy? To me, like I see tools like advertised to me like blatantly where there's like, oh, we got a plugin now where you could attach a mic and go burr, 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 and then you could feed that through, and it'll automatically convert it to whatever instrument you want. It could be any air instrument, it could be any strings instrument, it could be any synth instrument, and it'll just convert it. Like, like I'm like, holy shit, that's fucking insane. That to me is like very, very novel use of like AI and music production. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like it's still valid if you say like, if you type a prompt in like, please produce a fucking 4x4 time signature, 8 bars or 8 measures of this kind of music of like samba house, add like a soul thing.
See, that's the other thing. So you like check amongst non-musicians and they'll just be like, make a song about taffy or, you know, about poop. But like when any musician I talk to is using this tool, they communicate differently. They're like, I want it in 4/4. I want 160 BPM. Like use this
key. Use this key.
Yeah, this is the key. And like, what's crazy is AI can do that. But like, like most of the people writing the software aren't musicians, so they don't even know. Like, I'll have to send them example prompts. This is like, this is actually what you should.
You want to get the key. You want to get the BPM. You want to get this relative genre references. You want to get like the pieces of the band that's playing. Like like you want to tell them what the bass is, tell them what the mid and the highs are. Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah. I mean, this is going to be more and more interesting when it's not just a prompt, when it is kind of like ozone and you can kind of pick like the kind of peaks or like, you know, preset.
It breaks down into words. And this is why I say, like, I think words are the art, words themselves are like a reflection of artistry. I mean, if you look at what even the Bible says, it like in the beginning, there was the word of God. That was the first thing. It wasn't light. It wasn't anything. It was the word.
Yeah.
Let there be light, you know?
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. And honestly, like, you know, when you look at like conspiracy theories and shit about how these higher beings create these UFOs, they don't build them. They literally project like a sound frequency from their advanced larynx or whatever that's able to like, you know, make the molecules oscillate in a specific frequency that's able to like manifest physical matter into exactly what they want it to be. And I guess that's like, I mean, if you look up the Vril Society, you know, like where
as I do often,
the conspiracy theories about how did the Nazis get the UFOs? Well, that's how they got them. You know, it's not like they were shipped to them from outer space. It's like, no, like they just appeared and manifested in front of them
through the word. Well, through the idea of like direct communication with Maria Orchestras. I just want to do a good novel shout out. Mythoclast was recommending to Buddha AI. Like he loves reggae music and he was just at a Bob Marley show last night, which is cool because I think that means time travel. But either way, if you go to VBDC's Linktree, he does epic reggae. He's been on a lot of Wednesday Ultras, and I think he's been having like a emotional like crisis because of the way like the way algorithms work and they're suppressing music, especially because he talks about truth in his reggae. So yeah, I just want to give a shout out. He has this awesome new song, Smoke 'Em If You Got 'Em, and he also has a bunch of other great.
Well, I like this guy. I love this guy because my first like foray into actually playing music was punk rock. You know, like that's why I talk so much shit about punk rock, because I'm like, you know, I'm so like in tune with it. I'm like, dude. I mean, not anymore because I'm an adult, but like back when I was a teenager, it was like that was like my whole lifestyle. I was. Like,
I know. I feel really bad because I really love like Leftover Crack, and I'll like want to be at the
Choking
Alphabet.
Victim.
I'm a huge fan, but like I feel kind of funny when I'm over there, and I'm like I am like no longer.
But then there's Sublime, and Sublime is like its own nuanced thing because it's like punk, ska, reggae.
Yeah, Long Beach is wild. Kurt, though, we were talking about AI. What do you think about this idea? Like, you know, you're able to have a whole band now. Like, is that helping you? Or are you going to start using this tool more?
Okay, so like I'm probably really far behind when it comes to the whole AI thing, and I thought, from my perspective, I don't think it's really a resistance thing. It's like I'm not opposed to seeing what it can do. It's just that, well, so far I haven't seen AI as necessarily being the driving creative force, of course. So it's like AI mostly operates in your parameters. It's like one thing I think I would be weak at personally. Like I've mastered a lot, but like I would say my approach is mostly getting on the correct mix up front, and I'm not there. I think mastering, partially people master music partially to compete with other music to get the final product so that cross references against other stuff. And I guess if I collaborated with someone, I could have a lot stronger performance, I guess, in that aspect, but I've never really just focused on it. But I do think, you know, AI doing little things like that, the trouble you get into is if you would become too accustomed to this, it can become easy to miss things of where you could innovate things that you weren't thinking about, that the AI isn't programmed to do. So really you have to go into the AI and then tinker around with it. We're like, well, now I want you to do this thing instead of like operating under this previous, theory bias that we were operating before of what it means to master music or construct a track. Like, for example, I was thinking, like, imagine if we wanted to innovate reggae. Well, if you innovated reggae, you wouldn't really have reggae anymore. It's just like there's nothing wrong with writing new reggae, of course.
Well, hold on. I mean, yeah. I'm not saying you're wrong about that, but I'm going to offer it, because what I do is I don't honestly, I'm really bad at like disproving ideas, but I'm good at offering new ideas. So what I would say is, like, if you really want to make reggae novel or any music genre novel, we have like sampling's a really good tool. So like, let's say you were playing a reggae song, and it was like standard reggae, like reggae chord progressions and that tone with guitar and the instruments, but you just happen to add like New York City subway sound samples and sound bites and like, the boo boo or something like that. Like, I feel like there's always going to be, especially with sound, because sound is such like an open canvas, probably more open than like an actual physical like blank like.
Yeah, canvas, I have a couple examples of that actually. I was gonna try to like pull on, check out. This is my You can hear Japanese music and you can hear funk, right?
The disco.
She's gonna do it too.
No, it's. Yeah, this is a great example of something I want.
How did you know?
Right.
It's almost.
That's what it's gonna lead to.
You're stereotyping. No, but you were right. So
no, I mean, I just like I just know what I like, and I know what has to. I know what has to come after that.
That's right. It does.
I know what I like. I know what I like.
Now, those things are fun to hear, and definitely some sort of aspect. And now, personally, like in just my point of view, like from like the creative aspect, it's like I view music as just awesome. It's awesome, of course, but like it's like any other art form. It's like you always have ways to press the boundaries of your assumptions. So like really the production aspect, the mastering aspect, those are great, and they're also one dimension of like an art form that just seems to have endless dimensions to it. So that's another reason why I haven't really adapted much to AI. It's because I feel like whatever I put in front of me, it's like, okay, I might already have so many ways this could veer off, and it's like, well, if I feel like I run out of ideas here, then like I'll incorporate new things. But I think mainly with seeing what certain genres can do or are capable of doing, especially like in the electronic world, the experimental world. I love experimental music just because like it really gets out there, and it's it really stretches. It's just a creative force because it's constantly trying to come up with new ideas to how to reform it. So I think electronic music, when it gets experimental, it's like there's so much that you can do that there are a lot of physical limitations to in-person instruments. And I think I love instruments. I think they're awesome, and there's some diehard apologists for them, and that's great for them. But like I think you really do have to admit, like once you sit down, it's like, and write something, like you can put shit through a MIDI like in 5 minutes that no musician could ever do, ever.
Very precise.
Yeah.
Just and like black MIDI where you just play like music until your computer crashes. That's some of my favorite MIDI.
Not even that. Let's say you have a drummer play like 4 times, and you just got to take the one bit that was perfect, and that's what you repeat. And then like that in itself, it's like it's organic, but it's also taking the best of what he had and repeating that instead of using like the shittier parts. But let me ask you though, like, do you think Kurt, do you think like ideas actually originate from people, or do you think like ideas exist externally and we just kind of channel them through us?
It's I mean, you could make arguments for both. I'm not going to say that I think it's either way. I think it's a symbiotic thing. It's like one genres tend to be born out of other genres, and really it's like, so I guess this might sound cheesy, but sometimes when I feel like I'm creating, it's like I'm not even participating in the creation process sometimes because it feels so easy.
Yeah, I agree.
The ideas are just like soaking in.
That's how I feel. Like, I honestly feel like as a creative person, not even just a music maker, but as any creative person, I feel like we don't really have the ideas don't come from us. The ideas are there. They're like swimming around us. We have to be in a state where we are empty. Like, you know that what is it, an idiom? It's like if the cup is already full, it's going to overflow. You have to empty the cup before you can accept new, more. So it's like, yeah, I think it's like that. It's if you really want to create like novel things efficiently a lot, then you have to learn how to like empty your cup. Like you have to like literally empty your mind to be able to. You have to hit a reset button or a flush.
It's like there's like we have a bunch of people that are metaphorically digging around in the dirt to find gemstones, and that's
but they're already I don't think you don't have to go that far. I'm saying they're already all around us. All the best ideas are all around us. You just have to let the shitty ideas you have go. That's really all it takes.
I guess I was going a slightly different direction. I mean, like I was trying to validate digging through something, because sometimes like you do have to go through a lot of bad ideas, but the gemstones are already in the ground. And they might be unique. There might be new gemstones that you can show people, but they're there. And really, a lot of it's just about the painstaking process of going through all that dirt and finding like, oh, this is a cool thing. You want to check this out? And
I agree with I agree. You gotta be committed to like once you find it. But to me, it's not about finding a good idea or a bad idea. It's about finding an idea you like or dislike. Like, like
if you're willing to polish it if you like it.
Yeah. Like if I like it, but it's a bad idea, I'm willing to like spend years and years like working it just to make it something that I think would actually be of value.
That's a huge part of it, because people will spend a lot of time. Like, let's say, you look at like a traditional, wooden like carpenter who makes these like ornate like tables, and he might really just have wanted like a solid steel IKEA table, but he couldn't afford it. Like that wasn't available 200 years ago. So, you use wood and you just try to make it look as nice as you can. And what do you know? It looks actually a lot nicer than like this solid steel table. But, you wouldn't have even gone and tried to find that out unless you were unable,
Oh, that reminds me. So that's a perfect. I got a good example of that. So there used to be, I don't know what happened to him, but there used to be this really annoying guy on Facebook, and he went on this campaign. He's like, for 100 days, every single day, I'm going to make a minute-long video. Now we look back at that, it's like, that's stupid. But back then it was pretty novel. And this guy, he made this one video one day, and it was pretty good in my opinion. He was like, every day, with the inspirational music playing, he's like, every day people spend hundreds of dollars on Italian designer brand products. And he was like referring to like a leather Gucci jacket that costs like $1,200. Well, I'm going to show you how much it takes to get a plane ticket to Italy to find a person who would make a custom jacket for me. And he bought a ticket to Italy, found a guy who would make a custom leather jacket for him, and it was a beautiful jacket, like an Italian designer.
Yeah, this is why I'll never like my cult will never be Hillsong, because I'm not gonna buy like Gucci shoes. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm the Pope. Awesome. I'm the Pope. I'm gonna go get a cobbler to make my shoes.
The whole shit cost him like $600.
Yeah. Exactly, like because Italy really wants you there, and you.
Meanwhile, if you bought a Gucci jacket, that would have cost you like $2,000, like $10,000 easily.
Yeah,
some shit like that.
Like, and what is Gucci, right? Like, what is? Did you watch the House of?
Yeah. It's
like, what is it?
No, all the design, like Chanel, like all of them, they all have some crazy.
I was in Bosnia, and there's a town called Visoko, which has been like, it's like the leather working town was the capital of Bosnia in the 11th century, right? Which is also where the Bosnian pyramids are at. So like, even if you don't believe in the pyramids, go to Visoko to find a cobbler, because you're
what matters is that people in power believe in it.
That's true. I mean, I'm a big fan. Like the idea of keeping Bosnia out of the European Union and making it into this sort of UN, like Tibet, Israel super state. It's an interesting idea. I'm just saying, if you wanted like Gucci looking, Adidas looking like shoes, like Bosnian Slavs who cobble can do it for you. Like you can get better. You can't get that from Gucci. That's kind of the thing that blows my mind, that people would want to have. I just always wanted a pair of Louis Vuitton. Why? Like, if you could get a cobbler, wouldn't you rather have?
Honestly, I was never a person who held much stake in like IQ, but like, arbitrarily, I think like high IQ interests are like, I don't just want like a gun. I want to go to like the Khyber Pass and get like one of these weird custom guns from these like Arabic like gunsmiths. You know, like they make these weird fucked up hybrids of like an AK lower and an M4 upper. Like
we get specific,
yeah. Like I want that weird shit. You know, like I think that's some high IQ shit. When you realize like what's available to you, and you realize like, you know, like what you can get, and you're like, I don't have to just get what everyone else is getting. Like I want to get something that's specific to my needs. Like if anything, ideally I want to build it, you know, like.
Melissa. Yeah, he says he's going to Bosnia, but he's really going to Herzegovina. Don't you believe him? All right, fair enough. Yeah. I do think that like the interesting thing though with AI music also is like the loss of people. We talked about this a bit at the beginning, Chris and I, this idea that you used to have a symphony, or, you know, the idea even now, you're like, wow, why would you make music by yourself? But
why would you make music with a band? You could just make music by yourself.
Yeah, but like a band of 4 people is already like a quartet on the way to a symphony. So we've been doing this. We've been breaking it down. Like, and what's the value of a band?
It's atomization.
But a band and especially a symphony, I mean, like, what is the difference between like, you know, Michael Jackson and a symphony? What's the difference between a single musician and a symphony?
I shouldn't be telling you this, but this is my goal with music as a music producer and a musician. My goal is to someday make like a virtual band like Gorillaz.
Of course.
You know, like a band that's not me. I am just the person who invented and fabricated this band. And I want to create like a virtual singer, a virtual bassist, a virtual guitarist.
Hatsune Miku for big kids. Yeah, agreed.
I just want to make and they may not exist in physical space, but they exist in like people's minds and hearts and whatever.
Turn it around. How stupid is it not to do that? So like, look at anyone else who's sold, like Prince or David Bowie.
Yeah, and it was so compromised by all the material baggage. And
they had to literally they sold their identities.
Look at Fleetwood Mac. You know, like look at the Backstreet Boys. Like,
yeah, you should, if you're gonna have to sell your identity, make another identity to sell. Like
exactly.
Daft Punk,
honestly, when it comes, did you know? Like, well, personally, no one would know this, but personally, when it comes to idols, I don't idolize real people. I idolize fictional people. I idolize fictional characters, you know?
That's probably, so this is a weird one too, because like on one hand, that's smarter because a fictional character can be perfect.
And they can't let you down.
Right. On the other hand, I'm a big fan of biblical sinners. Like one of the coolest things to me about the Bible is that it's not like I prefer the Ramayana and the Gita, shockingly to some people here, because it's so much fun and, you know, there's milk and honey and all that. But with the Bible, you have sinners who screw up and these are the consequences of their actions. And it might be your hero. And he's like, yeah, your hero, he just killed his best friend so he could do his best friend's wife. And here's what happened to his children.
That's some real shit.
It's pretty interesting, right? The idea of karma. As people say, there's no karma in the Bible. The Bible is literally the story of karma. It's all about consequences of
your bloodline inheriting sin from your
which is interesting in that term of like, where does music come from? Because someone's saying, you know, it's from God, and someone's like, it's from inside you. I don't see the difference. God is inside you, and outside it's everywhere. So the idea of that relationship between, like Kurt saying, things are coming into you, but you're experiencing them already through the symbols that you've been taught, right? So you're creating this relationship with what you're experiencing and where you came from that is making that art.
Yeah, it's like the ideas are tadpoles that would never become fish or frogs unless they go through you first. You're the portal that makes these ideas, these little tadpole ideas, into actual beings. I
like that. I also wonder though about the idea like of the importance of the individual, because, you know, a big perk of being a you know, singular musician, you know, is you're like, it's me and my ideas, and I got a band behind me, but it's Paul McCartney here now, versus a symphony. A symphony is all like, you know, screw you, forget who you are, like do what you're told. Like you literally become part of this super organism, and I know people who love that far more than friends of mine who love being like the #1 musician in their life.
No, fuck that. I'd rather go your route, which is not the hive mind route.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm not a symphony person myself, but I know some people. I'm like, wait, like, why wouldn't you write your own songs? Like, yeah, because I get to perform the violin in Mozart. It's like, why?
I think the symphony route is very ego based. It's very like, I mean, it's ego.
That's interesting because they both are, right? Yeah.
I was gonna say it's top to bottom. It's like top ego where it's like I'm the conductor. I am the guy who's able to make to direct these fucking little tools. Meanwhile, the little tools are like, I am the best ratchet that has ever been a ratchet. No other ratchet is, or I am the best sprocket. No other sprocket is better at being a sprocket, or I am the best fucking cog. There's no better cog that is better at being this cog than me. And I honestly respect that. I see pride in that. I honestly see respectability in that, where it's like, if I'm making an orchestra to play like this one piece that I want it to be perfect when I play it to Boston or fucking Salt Lake City or wherever the fuck this Philharmonic Orchestra is playing, I want to get the guys that take pride in what they do. Like, yeah, they're just playing the pan flute for like 2 seconds in this one part, but I want them to believe in that with every fiber of their being. And what I will give credit for to classical music is that even that flute player who plays that little fucking 2-second part, even he feels like immense pride in it. He's like, this is it. This is what my life is about. And I respect that so much.
Except for the triangle. Whoever plays the triangle, I feel bad for. But otherwise.
No, you know who I'm really jealous of? That I'll never not be jealous of is the xylophone player.
Oh, yeah.
The guy who's got like 4, like 2 things in each hand. He's like, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, that guy is the pimp daddy. Like, he is the best dude of the orchestra. He's just like, I'm like, what the fuck? He's got like 2, and it's like 2 sticks with like pom poms at the end. It's like the xylophone guy is sick, and he might be like the worst thing is when like the xylophone guy's a scumbag. You know, it's like, why don't he couldn't be like this like little Asian kid? It's like, nah, he had to be this like brawny like white Chad. He's like such a super dick. He's like, yeah, I fuck your girlfriend and I play the xylophone. What the fuck?
We need a movie about xylophone players. I never thought about
it. Yeah.
Oh man.
And he's like a muscular Chad, like Jack Reacher, but a
big
xylophone.
Beard, no back head hair. Yeah. Kurt, how long have you been playing music? And like, what do you think about symphonies yourself? Like, would you ever do it?
Yeah, good questions. So I started, now I'm 34 and I didn't get much. I got a little bit of exposure when I was in elementary school, but really I dug into it a lot more when I was 18. So like, yeah, 16 years now, because I'm getting old. not all that old, but
not that old. You're only old when you're about like 60. I think that's truly old. Yeah. That's when you got to say like, I'm fucking old.
Even some of these 60-year-old boomer babies, to me, you know, I'm seeing 70. I'm gonna say 70. 70 is the new 40.
Dude, you know who fucked it up for me? It was guys like Jack Nicholson and Steve Buscemi. They like fucked up my whole perception of everything. I'm like, oh man, like
if you burn the candle at both ends, it doesn't work that way. But if you're like doing Pilates and you're a mom in like Ocean Beach, you doing all right at 70. I've seen
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's celebrity examples that I don't want to mention because I don't want to give them like trash. They have enough, you know, like. But guys like Steve Buscemi, Jack Nicholson, they're like an enigma. You know, I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Like,
yeah. Well, you're not that old, Kurt. You're doing okay. You could be older.
Thank you.
I don't think anyone's too old for anything anymore, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, now you got like, there is this one like 60-year-old guy. I think he's like a famous internet guy too, and like he allows his whole life to be dictated by like AI algorithms.
Whoa.
But apparently he looks super young. You know, he's like super healthy. I don't think
is it that Mormon transhumanist guy who's like electroshocking himself at night?
What's his name? Do you know? He's got a like super generic name. You got to pull him up.
Brian. It's like Brian Johnson.
Yeah. That guy. Yo, I heard him talk. I was like, holy shit, this is like terrifying. He was like literally
It is Brian Johnson. I can't believe it. I was like, it's so basic that I couldn't believe it really was. But yeah. No, but he's interesting.
He's a bioengineered human. Like he's literally
that dude started out as Mormon and he like got really upset because they were using the money all weird.
You know, I said this. I mean, I didn't say it as a joke, but people took it as a joke. But I was serious. I was like, Mormons are probably going to be the people who make the Holy Land in outer space. Yeah, you know, like they're probably going to be the ones to do it. Like space Mormons. We are probably going to have space Mormons. It's not even a joke.
Book of Mormon's been to space, apparently. Like it was sent up with some astronauts. There are some the Mormon astronauts and all that. Like at least allegedly, right?
You ever see are you a Star Trek fan, for example?
Oh yeah. I mean, it is militant fascism, but like I'm okay with it.
Yeah. No, Star Trek is good. Do you like The Expanse? Do you ever see The Expanse?
Oh yeah, I like The Expanse. Yeah.
Yo, remember the Mormon line? That was like fucking
dude,
sick. They had the biggest colony ship ever made, and it had like an artificial sky.
There's a continuity there because Starship Troopers is like now the Mormon Fort Joseph Smith is set up, right? So like,
and they had to go out there. Because of course they would do that.
They're gonna
do that. And you know what? I respect it. I don't even.
There's a pretty funny. There's a meme going on right now where people are like, if only there was like a holy land that was like in the Midwest instead of the Middle East. And it's like, did you guys forget? Like there.
It should be. Well, Richard's, all right. Honestly, this is where it gets a little controversial. Full disclosure. All I'm going to say is, in my opinion, people took Richard Spencer all wrong. People took him as like a neo-Nazi, like neoconservative.
He's just a meme, yeah.
But really, I think he was just like a fucking Mormon without realizing it. Like he did it.
Don't lump him up with. Oh god.
I'm just saying, Richard Spencer did not want to deport anybody. Never in his entire shtick did he ever say, we got to kick out the Mexicans. We got to kick people out of it. No, he never said that. All he said, the real thing that he said was, we need a space in America for white people. We need communism for white people, and we need that to be Wisconsin. And I say, as a New Yorker, an Asian born New York born like Asian, I say let them have Wisconsin.
My concern is like, have you been to Wisconsin? Like that's literally where Jeffrey Dahmer's from. Like I'm in Minnesota right now.
But Wisconsin.
You don't want Wisconsin.
First of all, Wisconsin has good cheese. It's already white as fuck. Like let them have Wisconsin. Yo, if Richard.
I hear you out. And like I'm supposed to be the one who's for it and all that, right? Because I do love new wave music and Depeche Mode. But the problem is,
that's a okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
and I may or may not like know the people in question. But the deal is, when Minnesota, you look around and there's all of this. There are like Scandinavian people, like the mascot is the Viking and all that. That's cool. And there are a lot of Somalis and there are a lot of Hmong from China and Cambodia, right? Because the CIA was in a para war with China, and they recruited the Hmong. And guess what? When they left, and then Nixon made the deal with China, they destroyed like their own side, like the people that were helping them. They just kind of abandoned them. And so, kind of to try to like clean up an international genocide issue, they brought them to America and they put them in the Midwest. And now you have Hmong gangs, and it's like there are all kinds of really great doctors and lawyers.
The Chinese have always been like Asians alone have always been responsible for prostitution, gambling, human trafficking in the United States since the United States was the United States.
But probably also, to be fair, because triads were licensed by the Irish cops to do those jobs.
Yeah, because they were even the Irish cops were probably licensed by the British cops. It probably went all the way up.
Yeah, for sure. And the idea of the Archdiocese controlling New York and San Francisco for that purpose.
It was always this balance. It was always this weird balance of like influences.
But yeah, I think that it's really good in Minnesota. I don't know if everyone agrees with me, but I really love it. I'll walk into someone who's from like Somalia, or he's like
I'm down with anyone who believes in a united America at this point. Like I don't care what state you are. I don't even care if you're a conservative. I don't care if you're a liberal. I don't care if you're down with a united America of a one like America of 50 states.
Who's more nationalistic and conservative than like an Asian American immigrant who lost their home to a communist revolution? You'll find like the Somali like people. At the end of the day, they're going to be defending their homes with rifles and muskets next to these NRA white people. Like they're going to be defending the same piece of property and like, who are these people that are not like the people that are against this American thing? Tends to be like intellectualist college kids. And a lot of them are who has the money to send their kids there. So it ends up economically being, like
the logical conclusion is the Civil War.
Yeah, but war. What does war mean? Does war have to be violent?
No, it doesn't have to be violent. It could be a Cold War. It could be like literally like where we secede. It doesn't mean people are getting shot. It just means where us as states are saying, no, we are not following the Fed's plan. What are you going to do? Like invade all of Texas and like kill civilians? It's like, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to send National Guards from other states. You're not going to send special forces from other like Langley. None of that's going to happen. Like they know like states do have a certain element of power. I like to think they do. I don't want to think of a scenario where DC would like say like let's drop a bomb on Texas. Like, you know, it would never happen ever. I hope.
God only knows what they'll do. I mean, you've looked at some of the executive orders they have, the capacity to just take property in the imminent attack or the worry of a nuclear disaster or a storm. They can commandeer your vehicle. Your
well,
fuel,
if what you're saying is true, then I would say the main incentive should be that every state secedes. Then every state by that, if any one state like actually loses faith, then that's going to be like where fuck this, like I'm not gonna do this anymore. Where I don't think it's gonna be like, you know, state by state basis. I think America would be divided, like balkanized.
This is one of the reasons why I'm not against. So earlier we had a show, we were talking about militarization of the police, and guess why I'm not against militarization? Why I'm for militarization of local police? Because if you look at it, it's the the nationalist police force that we're talking about, as opposed to local sheriffs. But if we had localized vigilante, militia, paramilitary groups associated with the sheriffs of each state, that would be the checks and balances necessary against a federalist.
First of all,
we don't have the ability to protect our state.
No, I agree with you, but B, I don't know this for sure. I'm not an expert. I should be, because my sister's in the Army Reserve, but
nice.
I don't know this for sure. But isn't that what the National Guard is for? Isn't the National Guard primarily? I mean, yeah, ultimately they're supposed to answer to the president, like ultimately, because the president enables all of America because he's the president.
Yeah,
but
really,
the National Guard.
The National Guard has some issues, and it would go back to Nixon, right? So during the Nixon administration, there's a flipping period going over between the Democrats and the Republicans, and the Jacksonian Democrats and the KKK were associated with the National Guard from the Jacksonian period, from James Polk on, 1840s, right? 1850s is when like that is associated. But you could also say that Nixon built Beach Patrol, which was, what does it sound like? It's like an anti-hippie riot squad, Beach Patrol, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of options to what the National Guard became under the commander-in-chief. When you really look at the word militia means in Sanskrit assembly. And so a peaceable assembly, and also this idea of the Second Amendment. So the Second Amendment says that a well-regulated militia, the word regulated is like oiled engine. We have this 1984 idea that regulated means bureaucratically not running, which is the opposite of what like a regulated engine is working well. So a well-regulated militia means you have to have guns and education and weapons and make sure that these kids. So when you say that education, well, then now you've just actually found the only reason that we have public school. Public school exists so that you could have a well-regulated militia, so that you could protect each local community against a federalist overthrow, or God forbid, some outside force coming into the United States, particularly after the Monroe Doctrine. That becomes a concern, right? So,
but luckily, you know what I do think is unified though is the corporations that actually enable the violence in the first place. The weapons manufacturers, for example, like they're all privatized, like Smith and Wesson, fucking
Koch brothers.
Yeah, they're all first of all, they're all in cahoots with each other. They have to be to make this work. And the military industrial complex doesn't just include weapons manufacturers. They also include people that make like Ford, you know, it includes Boeing, it includes Raytheon, it includes Lockheed Martin is obvious. Yeah. You know, it includes all these companies. It includes General Electric. What, you think General Electric doesn't have their hands in war? No, they make most of their money in war.
Yeah, active denial resistance. Isn't it crazy? They make like hospital equipment, and
that's what I'm saying. It's like, no,
bleed out your eyes.
It's insane. I'm like, yo, you do not understand the kind of technology that companies like General Electric, Raytheon, Nvidia, like these people, they produce technology, and you'll never see it because you'll never buy it on the open market. You'll never see it because it's not made for the open market. They get contracted to make things that could, like, for example, they could allegedly, which I believe, they have technology that could direct signals that could sound like voices in your head, right, but it's played in the frequency of your own voice. So it's like, it's literally, you think it's your own thoughts playing in your head audibly, not like sonically in your eardrum, just like having the frequency in your neurons. Like they're able to do energy directed weaponry attacks like this, and like energy directed weaponry, and like that's fucked up.
And this is fun too. MIT's this is actually years ago now, but they can transcribe the voice in your head.
So that's what I'm saying. Like they can repeat.
They can either play what they want you to hear, or they can literally record what you're saying, use an algorithm to pick out what the words were. And they can, so mind reading and mind printing, right?
It's scary shit, you know. So I'm like, I mean, you know, I think about that, and I'm like, this is what makes me like say like, yeah, religion is the answer, spirituality is, because you have to look within, and when you look within, that's the natural answer. It's like, oh yeah, we have souls. I forgot. Like, how did I ever forget the fact that I, as a human being, have a soul? Because I mean, if I'm wrong about it, fine, I'm wrong. But if I'm, you know, I don't think I'm
If
wrong.
I'm right, it's a big deal. Yeah.
If I'm right, it's a big deal. But if I'm wrong, like whatever, okay. Like I don't have a soul, that's fine. I'm okay with that. And I don't have a big enough ego to say, oh no, I don't have a soul. What? No, it's like if I'm truly am a soulless being, I will accept it. I'll accept my role as just a meat puppet meant to do like soulless labor. Okay. But if I do have a soul, at least I know I lived my life believing in that. At least I know I lived my life according to the values of a being that has a soul. I'll never regret any moment, you know? And like as a soul being, it's, well, I guess like, you know, it's the 10 commandments cover it pretty basically enough. It's like, what? Do no harm. Yeah, I guess try your best not to, like, in my opinion, the morality is do whatever you want as long as it doesn't prevent other people from doing what they want. That is like the rule everyone should follow. Like, do what you want, just don't fuck with what other people want to do.
It's hard, yeah. That's like it's the whole like the abstract idea of America, and like we're always trying to figure out how we can do that.
But that's the idea: is do what you want, just don't fuck with other people's autonomy. You know, like. Which
all right, Richard Spencer can have an island, but not Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give him Wisconsin, you know.
Maybe you can. We'll have to talk about it. We'll see how it goes.
We should change Epstein Island into Richard Spencer Island.
Oh man,
like, yeah, it's a rebrand.
There's a change.org petition we could get going. Kurt, you're thinking. I can see you thinking. Look at. I'm gonna zoom in on his.
I gotta take a pee break, but you could take over.
Okay, I'll see you in a minute.
Hello there.
You look like that scene in Basic Instinct where she's like being like, you know, they're giving her a lie detector test, but then you can see her vagina.
Oh, I did not see that.
I love Basic Instinct. It's a great movie.
Okay, well, that's a good. What year did that come out?
1996. Basic Instinct. The first time I saw Basic Instinct, I saw it from the library. 1992. My God, so much older. I saw it at the library. And it was narrated for the blind. So it was on top of this movie being what it was. The whole time it was being described to me, and I was probably like 8 at the time. I think when I saw it, was probably 1996 when I saw it. That's probably why, like 7 or 8.
Oh yeah.
Great
I
movie.
don't know. No, I'll try to watch that sometime. My thoughts were veering off like constantly. I remember the movie Office Space and how much I love it.
Good movie.
Around that time. So have you heard much of Slavoj Žižek lately?
Oh yeah. Well, isn't he's got some new awesome book, right? What's his news?
I haven't read it. I've been like. My favorite podcast, I guess, did a whole
Christian Atheism and How to Be a Real Materialist. I'm really excited about it. I haven't got it yet, but Christian Atheism and How to Be a Real Materialist is going to be probably the most important. Like, I just ordered a copy about a week ago. I'm waiting for it. I'm really, really freaking excited about this book. I can't stress enough. So considering all we've been talking about and the fact that this is in response to the Jordan Peterson debate, because he's trying, like, this is after Jordan Peterson lost that debate, let's be honest, and Zizek won that debate gloriously. I don't think Zizek was happy with that, because the goal for him was to be corrected. He wanted to open up his mind a bit. So this book is all about him trying to study and put himself in the mind of Jordan Peterson. This is my perspective on this book, trying to understand Christian atheism and how we come from this culture. It's going to be so huge. I just can't even believe it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these materialists just don't. I mean, they're trying to break the. I'm the first of all.
He's trying to break the mold. Yeah,
I can't hate on the strict materialists for trying to engage with metaphysics. You know, like they're and I know why they're scared, because like, let's be honest, like metaphysics did lead to a lot of damage, like especially like the obsession and the idealism throughout history. Like it led to a lot of carnage for no good reason, which is why, yes, I get why I
mean, there's a while when religion kind of really was an opiate of the masses, and the idea of ignoring the material was like, don't worry, we're gonna get through this, you're gonna die and it's gonna be great. Like,
but now we're at the other point of the end where it's like ignoring that ended up like doing the same thing, you know. It's like, so we have to clearly find a middle point, you know. We have to clearly find a middle point between religious fervor and like strict materialism, you know. There has to be like a grounded, and this is why I like alchemy and hermeticism and all that stuff. And well, I know a lot of orders that like took advantage of it and are still empowered to this day that we don't like to talk about. I mean, at least, you know, people
we just try not to, but
people are at least more familiar about things like the World Economic Forum, and you know, it's not as generic as it sounds in name. Like it's a pretty serious party of people, you know.
Right. But sorry, Kurt, you were saying about Zizek. You wanted.
No, he seems like that whole title. It seems like he always incorporates a little bit of comedy or like satire into the tone that he's bringing. So I think that's at least part of it. Like one of his goals is to really get you thinking by putting a lot of things together that seem like they're contradictory. That seems to be what
the hooked cross here. Even the idea. This is. You couldn't spell the hook cross in Germany, so this is the closest he'll come. But this is wild if you think about it.
Yeah, it's kind of. He seems like, hopefully he's bringing a lot of smiles to everyone's faces. That's all I know. But I was reading or listening to a little bit like about his work, and it made me question like a lot of the assumptions that I've been making personally, because I want to be in my life all kumbaya, and I want to, be, one with everything, defeat this illusion of separation between everything. But it becomes so easy to fall into that 21st century enlightenment mindset without and also carry the possibility of missing out on the real issions, and also
new age shit.
Yeah. And to fall into those same traps. So I think what he's doing, he's doing a great critique of both our traditional way of right and left thinking, and saying, okay, it's not about synthesizing any of these ideas. It's about looking at them in their honest perspective, and then being able to choose a path forward. And that doesn't seem to be what the dominant narratives are. But I think an interesting thing he tends to talk about is, what state right now is capitalism in? And so I think it's such a hard thing to bring up, because anytime you mention the word capitalism, the first thing that comes to people's mind is their ideology, and people get very emotional about any arguments, even if you mention it. So to some people, if you bring up the term late capitalism, you basically get laughter as a response, because maybe some of it's justified, because maybe late capitalism is just an assumption, but maybe it's not. But I think Zizek definitely
go ahead, but we gotta do a definition game in a second, because you always use capitalism versus consumerism.
I mean, when you said that, it's we got to think of a way to make late capitalism, whatever, blah blah blah, in the modern world. I was thinking just Bitcoin, because that's. To me,
that's the irony. Is the answer to failed consumerism is pure capitalism?
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
Which is Bitcoin, which is a completely fabricated form of cyber gold. That is literally the answer.
Well, the reason Bitcoin is cool to me is because it's a smart contract, and so the idea of avoiding a promissory note, a lawyer, a paralegal,
catastrophe.
God, well, no, but who's the person? You have to have someone affidavit. You have to have someone co-sign it. What's it called? Where you to get a document?
Well. Before we go into that, let's let's cover this basis first. Why is gold a problem? First of all, it's heavy. Nobody wants to carry around a sack of gold coins, because we all know gold is the main thing in this world that's actually counts. That could be considered a true, beautiful, perfect, aesthetic, material, everything commodity. gold doesn't deteriorate. It doesn't like, you know, corrupt like other metals over time. It's super conductive, so it's very useful, and it's very beautiful. It's aesthetically valuable. So yeah, but it's just fucking heavy. To have a lot of gold is to carry a lot of fucking weight. So that's why money came into the picture, but eventually like that went out the window because our government was like,
but like really all what is money? Because money is like, at the end of the day, it's not about the gold anymore because we've like surpassed it. It's about me having a certain amount of hours of your life, right?
It's about energy. Energy is the new currency. Energy.
Yeah. And that energy exchange is based on contract, and contract is two mutually agreeing parties that are benefited by an exchange, right?
I give you this bit of my life. You know?
So when people say a Ponzi scheme about Bitcoin, I think they're missing the point that it's a pure energy exchange with a contract. It's a very legalistic contract. It just happens to be encrypted in digital.
I give you bits of this person's life, you know,
I mean, so it is capitalism because you're trying, and I think that how is that bad? And then what are you saying capitalism is, Kurt? Because you're making capitalism sound like consumerism and feudalism to me.
Well, I think those are pretty reasonable incorporations into the definition, but also there's a point in differentiating everything, of course. But I think honestly, if we go in and try to even define capitalism, we go all the way back just to the creation of currency itself, because like that's step one, is the creation of a currency. Apparently we've had currency for maybe tens of thousands of years in some form, and it was created as basically a way to even out certain forces, basically ultimately, the goal was to raise our chances of survival, because there were a lot of things that we invented the market as a way to give a buffer to resources.
Your microphone got really quiet. I can't hear you.
Yeah, check 1 2 1 2. Yes, it's a little old. I need to replace these wires, but
I'm not saying wire.
Yeah, a lot of it does come back to the idea of money creation, and then you do have feudalism, which I don't have the words to perfectly describe. I read a little
oligarchy.
Yeah, like an oligarchy. But the main goal of capitalism, well, is to produce capital, but also you want to. It's geared around the idea of profit.
So feudalism comes from the word fee, right? So. Yeah.
Beautiful.
In a sense, I don't see too much of a distinction there, because it is, again, about it's raising capital. The main difference, though, feudalism, the reason I'd say feudalism is not capitalism is because capitalism in nature is when a Native American tribe takes a buffalo out of a herd and makes jackets and things like that, and there's capitalizing on this natural resource. Whereas feudalism is where I control all the buffaloes, and I give you as little buffalo as possible for as much fee as I can get.
And if you got smelly people from up north coming to try to take our buffalo, we kill the shit out of them.
Right, because they're my buffalo, right? As opposed to this idea. Buffalo, But like in true capitalism, it would be that like we all have this like system. Buffalo are coming in the fall. You have buffalo in the spring.
We gotta farm the buffalo. We could farm the maximum amount of buffalo while keeping the right like equilibrium.
And you could say like, okay, how could that system work? Well, you know what's weird is it did, and then all of a sudden we show up from the feudal world, and we start like decimating the population until buffalo are nearly extinct. So it seems like feudalism is the problem, not capitalism.
Well, what's fucked up is we now have the technology to actually maintain like good buffalo population.
Dude, we could bring back bipedal buffalo mutants to save us from the Ninja Turtles. Like we could
we could probably make like insane salmon farms, like just like upriver on the Mississippi, like we
could make genetically modified samurai salmon. It's 2024.
Armored salmon.
Sorry, no, Kurt, you were trying to say though that feudalism and capitalism.
Yeah, that's sometimes at the end of the day, it's like some things just become other things, and it looks like it's exactly the same. So, do we have feudalism now? Probably. Yeah, that is what I think. Like we do have a form of feudalism right now, and that's, if we don't even think that's the case, it's very quickly becoming that once again, because like we talk a lot about the middle class, how it's disappearing, and where that's inevitably going to go. And I think the middle class is disappearing, not entirely for malicious reasons. I think partially it is malice, but that doesn't explain the entirety of it. I think there's complacency and nihilism also leads to these outcomes as well.
Well, Kurt, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
All right. So let's say like in a society where the main fear is no longer like death. Like, you know, like we're in a society where if you didn't follow the rules, you get killed and you die. But what if you now lived in a society where if you didn't follow the rules, you didn't die, but something else would really like fuck you up, like something else would really mess with you. And that society, like when it comes to that, and the real value is no longer like life or death, like what becomes the next bit of value in your opinion or in your insight?
I think it's hard for me to answer that question because like I generally operate off of a lot of different assumptions, I guess.
So do I do too, you know?
Yeah, but okay, like even on a constrained level, like, because you're saying capitalism is the problem, and I've been kind of redefining it to feudalism, but like if capitalism were the problem, then what is the solution? Like, what kind of relationship in this running of the house that we call the economy? Like, how do we interact with each other other than capital? What is your solution then?
Well, that's a good question. I think like Zizek, I don't think even he is necessarily at this point offering a solution. I think his call is to actually identify the problem. But I think he also kind of takes the perspective that the problem will be identified no matter what because it has to be. And so like
free market, baby.
Yeah. All this crap is going to come to an end very quickly, and people need to be prepared for it. That seems to be his position.
We got a good group of audience in the house tonight. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. But okay. So, can you repeat the question? Sorry.
If capitalism is the problem, then what's the solution? Because you're saying the relationship that people are having, which is capitalizing on each other, is the problem. So, like, what is the solution? Then how are we supposed to interact with each other in order to have a better world? Because you're saying capitalism is doing all these bad things. Well, what do we do instead?
I think the solution is abundance. It's this what's really poisoning us, like what's really making us kill each other, and it's scarcity.
I'm sorry, I really want Kurt to answer this, but at the end of the day, like, I'm sorry, that's objectively the right answer. Is scarcity encourages feudalism, and capitalism is only relevant in a scarcity
mindset. Yeah, whereas abundance promotes love, compassion, and all that jazz. Like,
which is why Stalin is resurrected as an NFT, because like in
and the funny part about abundance is abundance itself isn't restricted to like material restrictions. Like even like a homeless man could like be on his deathbed, he's like, holy shit, I just realized I had everything I thought was beautiful in life, and then he dies. And then it's like, what the fuck, you know? You like, that's an abundance. He died with an abundance mindset. He died with everything he could have ever wanted, which is literally what he wanted at that moment. So it's like, I think that's the secret. It's abundance versus scarcity mindset. And I think scarcity mindset is very artificially induced, artificially injected.
For capitalism. Because you make money off of a scarcity. This is why Joseph in the Bible
like slaves make better customers. They just do. Like, you know, like a person who is not satisfied with their life is more likely to buy useless shit they do not need. That's just the truth. I know, I could speak this from personal experience. I bought more shit when I felt like a piece of shit who could not be happy unless I followed trends, and I had to buy shit that reflected those trends. Therefore, like, you know, I
have some Jinko jeans.
Yeah. So now I know.
Bingo.
Like now I know. That's what I feel about. But I don't hate it. You know, like it is what it is. You know, it's like, I get it. You know, I get why it's like that. I get why it exists. It's like, it's fine, you know.
Well, okay, like, then Kurt, how do you feel about that? That scarcity is scarcity like is synthetic scarcity the problem?
All right. Thank you. No, I think the best way to answer this question and compress it down is just to say, I think ultimately we looked at markets as a solution to a survival problem. I guess we'll call it a problem, but that was initially the reaction of the species. Like, how do we ensure survival? Well, let's make abundance, even if it's, you know, quote unquote artificial, and let's expand this population as much as possible. And I think that's ultimately what technology and capitalism combined together do. They just expand the population super, super rapidly. But I think now we're realizing like, maybe this isn't the best solution to just have long-term survival of the species. It's just like it comes with a shitload of problems if we keep on doing it this way. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is to I am not a strict materialist. I appreciate perspectives, but I think we've been driven super, super hard into the materialistic field, and that's the only thing that seems to penetrate Western education, is thinking about things through a materialistic scientific lens. Love science, but you can have science and also incorporate other. Science can't provide your philosophy, and that's what we've tried to do. Essentially, is try to have
it's not the source. Science. It's only the means to an end.
I had something I wrote about that the other day. I'm trying to find. I said like science is really great for measuring repeatable. Science is great for repeating phenomena. The problem is the most interesting glitches only happen once.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. Great quote. Great quote. Great.
Shut up.
Great quote. So
that wasn't for Richard Spencer just now. Sorry.
So it's dangerous to try to come up with master.
First of all, you know what? I will say this about Richard Spencer: is Richard Spencer never came out and killed anyone. No one has ever killed anyone and said this is for Richard Spencer. Nah, Richard Spencer was never a source of violence. All right.
And we listen to the same music. I know. We have the same haircut. Can we move on?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I didn't even make that association.
It's okay.
All I'm saying is he wasn't a terrible guy.
Dude, the Boogaloo, Electric Boogaloo. Anyway,
that was a little bad, but he wasn't terrible.
No, I love the Electric Boogaloo. That was Breaking Bad. That's a great movie. Anyway,
he wasn't a terrible guy.
So half the solution is identifying the problem. Then it becomes a lot more easy to see a solution. But then you get a lot of people. It's amazing how you can say the words community. You need to embrace your communities and protect your communities. But like if people say communism, like ooh, trigger warning. Someone said communism, but I'm not saying actual communism in a political perspective. I'm saying like you need to take care of your tribe. Stop worrying so much about what's happening on a global level.
The ocean is communist, you know.
Exactly.
The ocean is communal.
Yeah. Live in the ocean. We
I was thinking about the virtual. I'm sorry, I had this thought because you said that. Like in terms of the scarcity model, that we have the internet and virtual versus material. So when computers first emerged, we had very small amounts of space, and we still like marvel at how tiny the Super Mario Brothers game is, like how it fits. It's like Stairway to Heaven.
That's mystical.
It's like Stairway to Heaven. It's like Stairway to Heaven.
A better example would be like the original Pokemon games. That shit is amazing.
How is it possible, right? And
those Japanese people and their spiritual 16-bit cartridge shit was crazy.
And the N64, you start to see these wave function collapse, like Mendelbrot algorithms being used so they can do generated fractal.
And then now you see like Shinto priests blessing F-35s made by Mitsubishi, and you're like, those people know what they're fucking doing.
And so like first off, like you would never be able to convince me there's not a soul in your toaster, let alone in your like Nintendo. Like that'd be crazy, right? There is. But the other thing is that as time goes on, we have less scarcity. Like they have this gradual alleviation of scarcity, which has let us have like 100 terabyte or 100 gigabyte video games, right? We're getting to this point where things are this huge worlds and everything. That's only possible through this gradual alleviation of scarcity, which with scarcity, we were able to value something, right? And we wouldn't value it at all. We just have all this extra space if it weren't for the fact that we knew how to use it so concisely.
Until we get to the point where it starts to fuck us, like that mentality starts to mess us up.
Absolutely. You have to move beyond the N64 cartridge. But still, you got to look at the society like that. Like we might not have cared enough about grain to like produce grain the way we do. If we didn't have starvation, if we didn't have population, and if we didn't have corporations trying to, in a neo-techno-feudalistic state, capitalize on the system, we wouldn't get to a point where it even would be plausible to discuss sustainable systems, right? Sustainable systems only emerge once you have created systems which have competed with each other and have succeeded, and you have move beyond sufficiency to efficiency, and you say, God, I really like the milk. I don't want to lose it. Can we just
and therefore you follow the formula
socialize it?
That's the only way you could reflect the cornucopia.
Yeah, and like roads, for instance, or lighthouses, or anything else like that. Like we need these things probably, and they emerge after technology, after capitalism, after everything else. But then you decide, like, actually, like we kind of need this. Like, and if every kid had this, if every kid had access to education and internet and lights and things like that, we would be able to do so, like grosser mercantilism.
But I do think that. I do think, as a caveat, there probably is a cautionary tale over that. Like, you know, with like the Tower of Babel, you know, there probably is something to be said when it comes to a very unified system of like information and intelligence, which I totally agree with. It becomes more easily compromised, and I think that the true tale of the Tower of Babel wasn't really about like human desire to know things. I think it was more about like hacking, like system compromise. You know, that's what I really think it's about. Like when you get to such a sophisticated point where all information and knowledge can be centralized and well, I should say decentralized. That's what you want information to be. You want it to be decentralized. But the problem is when it is decentralized, eventually there's going to be it's going to leave room for one party to come in. It's like, well, what if we did centralize things? And then they create the Tower of Babel, and that creates problems for the gods.
Right, or for
everybody. Metaphorically,
even the idea just that you know, a total like a monocrop will fail.
Yeah,
it's more inevitable than if you have a bunch of different
diversity. Yeah. The human genome works the same way. You know, it thrives in diversity. It thrives in mixture. It thrives in different weird combinations of different people. I mean, it seems like that's what nature wants. Nature wants, like, well, I mean, that's not always the case. Like, for example, the liger. You know, the liger can't reproduce the way it should, but
dude, I don't know if I trust ligers or pandas anymore.
And yet you trust dogs. You know, like dogs are like literally
no. But are you an Owen Benjamite? Like, do you think that pandas don't really exist? Like, what do you think about pandas, man?
Oh, pandas! I've never seen a panda in real life.
Yeah,
like,
it's probably a Jesuit conspiracy. What do you think about the bears and women thing? You remember the bears and women thing? They're like,
yes, the bears and women.
I posted this the other day, this picture here, and it said with it that I said a bear would never do that.
Yo, Colin was like, "Oh, now she'll never wake up." What the fuck?
Yeah,
Colin's a funny guy. I like that guy. He's a cool dude.
We should conclude him too. Yeah, it's true.
We should add him to that. We should add him to that Asian shout that goes Korean.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know, Kurt. Like, it sounds like we agree on a lot of things. Like, there are problems in the world, but like when I hear that it's capitalism, I feel like it's not the problem. No, I feel like capitalism was really great for, again, like the Buffalo American
Indian. It's a self-mastery.
Like the Veda, like these things are all capitalist. Like, I'm going to learn, I'm going to become better, I'm going to be greater. Like, these are all fine. It's like a lack of sustainability. It's about scarcity. And so do you really associate capitalism with like this cutthroat? Is that what ANCAP is to you? Like, what is it that scares you about capitalism so much?
I don't think I'm particularly afraid of anything at this point in my life. I could be wrong. You know, I could be wrong about my own fears. So it's
repulsed is a better word. Maybe you're repulsed. I can tell you're repulsed by the word.
There's a lot of repulsion there. So I think, like, if you look at the way culture has devolved, it's like we've tried to replace religions in some sense, and this is also in the topic of like Zizek, Byung-Chul Han, very popular writers right now. But if you look at people like that, all right, so my former boss, I've mentioned times before that he used to spend, you know, thousands of dollars going to Tony Robbins sessions, you know, those big, you know, rallies where you go in and he basically gives you a big obnoxious pep talk. And I have such a hard time wrapping my head around this, but like I've seen firsthand how it makes people like incredibly narcissistic. That's one. Well, you only have several options. Is either people get really narcissistic and up their own ass, like because they want to develop, like hyper develop their ego, and there's like almost no questioning and evaluation of the ego, at least in the situation we've ended up in. And I think a lot of the spit is still piggybacking off of the culture that was around in the 50s and the 60s, where everything was awesome and we created the baby boom because everything was just so awesome back then, right? But yeah, there's that aspect of where it seems like people are missing something, and we've treated capitalism as the ideology itself, and like people are almost unknowingly going around and worshiping things like it's a religion. And
it's Satanism. It is like true. Like, so some people think Satanism is where you worship the devil. No, like Satanism is where you worship yourself. Like the idea of
entropy.
Yeah. Well, there's
like
that
well, that worshiping yourself is entropy, actually.
There could be do you think is it self-worship, Kurt? Is that
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. And so that's why, like, I don't know.
I got a question for you guys. Like, let's say there was a tournament of a combat tournament, and you had to fight this tournament. You had to channel the powers of a minor deity, like a lowercase g god. Which god would you pick?
Horus.
Horus?
Oh, does that count? Does that count?
Horus is a good one. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was thinking. I was like, it really depends on what you mean by lowercase g. So you just mean like the underneath the source of all
underneath the All Father, underneath, like, you know,
because like some things don't think of themselves as underneath, right? Like obviously, like Shiva would be great to like just finish anything, but I don't really consider Shiva lowercase g. It's more of like an aspect of the source of God.
I think Jesus could beat Shiva.
I think Jesus could beat Shiva.
Yeah.
I think Jesus could endure Shiva.
I think Jesus would seduce Shiva. I think Shiva would fall in love with Jesus. Shiva would come up to Jesus and be like, how does a guy like you exist? And Jesus would just be like, what? You know, I'm just me. And Shiva would be like, you're really cute, though.
That's true. I think they probably get along. That's super best friends.
I feel like
is the paradigm that I have to be defending myself against Jesus?
No, it's representing us, our desire to win this fighting tournament.
Because also it's because like I looked at it, like a tournament. Because if it's
like let's say your guardian was Jesus and my guardian was Buddha, and Buddha and Jesus would be friends, and we would be fighting, and then Buddha and Jesus.
Gautama Buddha, like the big Buddha, like is it Sumo Buddha, or are we talking about
Siddhartha?
Siddhartha
like
Buddha?
Siddhartha,
No, yeah, Jesus is gonna whoop him. Jesus is like,
you're right. Jesus would fuck up.
Dude, he packed iron. He's carrying crosses around.
Jesus, first of all, Jesus of Nazareth would have probably fucked up Siddhartha.
He would have whipped his dreadlocks out, just like it would have been brutal. Yeah.
Because Jesus of Nazareth had to live in the desert and farm goats. Like that's a hard life. That's a really.
But if you were like in a tournament, right? Like this isn't like I'm like Jesus is trying to beat me up.
Siddhartha was trained in a lot of
if this is the thing, like so Shiva or Krishna, like they would probably be pretty good like in a fight as well. Like
when it comes to like creating like a gathering or a scene, like Jesus was probably better at that.
True.
I mean, Jesus had a cool idea. Jesus's idea was so novel. I mean, it literally manifested in the entire Western world. Meanwhile, I don't think like first of all, I don't think the Germanic pantheon ever went away fully.
Melissa's got it. Venus, because Jesus wouldn't hit a girl. Good job, Melissa.
Yeah, but I don't think the Germanic pantheon ever truly went away. I don't think like people's beliefs of like Odin.
I think Odin's basically Shiva. Oh, in terms of beliefs too, yeah, you'll see people believe things in like they were taught Christianity, but they still look at it the way of their pagan.
And like Valhalla and the Valkyries and all that. Yeah, I don't think that ever died. I mean, don't get me wrong though. Like the Romans did make a lot of headway, but Jesus really did come and just take over the whole game. Like he came and he was like, yeah. I'm just gonna take over the whole meta, the whole meta of reality for a long time. Which it makes me reflect a lot on the New Age people with their whole concept of the star seeds. It's like, yeah, if reincarnation is real, then what about like species from other planets and other galaxies and other universes? Like, what do they not count in the whole cycle of like, reincarnation? Yeah. So obviously they would also come into the picture. So that's where the picture gets a little, it scales out a lot more than people originally think when it comes to just like Earth reincarnations. Like it doesn't have to be Earth reincarnation. It could be Earth like 623 or whatever, like if the Earth, if the universe is truly infinite and whatnot.
I'm a big fan of this. Jesus walked with a sword, right? And the idea that Jesus went to Japan in his early years, and like, it might have been Damascus steel and all that, but the idea that he went to get his sword from a samurai in Japan, I always like that one.
What I've always liked is the idea that, all right, so people like to, talk about the second coming of Christ. And, I feel like it's a very small minority of people that would say, oh, the literal man is going to be resurrected from the dead. And, no, I think the people who really get it understand that it's a mindset. Like it's about Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness is going to come back and be the default across humanity. And that's going to be the true second coming.
Yeah, but what's crazy is like we're in 2024 and we can make samurai salmon and like, mutant mastodon. So the idea of making like Jesus again is not impossible. It's more probable than ever. You could literally synthetically produce something that matched like the average human's idea of what Jesus is.
What I would ask you is like, what's the difference between like Christ consciousness and enlightenment, like the Buddha mindset? It's like the same thing. Like it's like, do no harm to others. Like just enjoy the present moment, be grateful for what you're given, the experience of life.
It's like, you know more about Buddhism than me. What do you think? Is it Christ consciousness, Buddhism, enlightenment the same?
I think honestly, like there's already been a hybrid of the religions, right? But like I think they're actually super compatible with each other. Like, yeah, I think you can kind of dabble in both worlds and be perfectly fine. And it's like we just now it's like in the world we're in, it's like I do view our modern version of Christianity. Well, Protestantism was kind of an experiment,
Scott, Alex is a nice boy. Have you seen our subscriber count? Calm down.
No, first of all, how do you think Christian samurai exist? And they did exist. Like Christian samurai totally existed.
Oh, samurai.
Yeah. I think the ninjas were created by the Jesuits, actually, right?
That's crazy.
Seriously. Like if you think about it, they wear all black and everything, and like if you look into the violence at the time in the Edo period,
I think ninja for spiritual reasons may have been created by the Jesuits, but I think
there was definitely martial arts that existed before this. I'm not trying to say, but I mean, like the modern, like within the last 200 years, the modern intention of the ninja has changed a lot from what it was in like the 15th century. And so the idea of the assassin ninja, the way Hollywood portrays this ninja, that has a lot to do with, at that time, the Edo period, the Catholics had like half of Japan under the Shogun show is kind of about this idea that there was a huge influx from Macau.
Yeah, killing as a form of subterfuge. That's like a very sacred concept. Honestly, it really is. It really is divine. Like to take a life to change the course of like literal history. That's pretty crazy, It's like and the fact that it could be conducted by like anyone, not just like the strongest barbarian, but like a woman, a child. Like, yeah, anyone could be the instrument to change.
But yeah, there's a big difference between a shogun, a samurai, and a ninja too, right? Like, in a sense, these are different roles you play.
Yeah, like the soldier, the warrior, the assassin, pretty much.
Sorry, Kurt, I took away your Buddhism. Come back.
It's all good. No, I think the main aspect, I think when you dig down into it, it's like it seems like really what Jesus was doing and what Buddha was doing, they were both practicing their own versions of magic, but the one big theme is like, well, I think one huge theme that gets overlooked is just approaching mortality and what the fleeting how fleeting the human experience is. It's like life is so short, it might as well be over tomorrow. So what do you do? What do you do with that kind of feeling, like that reality? You can either avoid that reality and kind of, you know, exist in this kind of we'll say stupor indefinitely until that reality hits you, or you can like embrace that reality and that influences your decisions in a positive manner. So I think that, yeah, that is a very core thing I think about both things. And that's why I think even when you get down to the symbolic versus like literal nature of what they were doing, I think Jesus himself, if you went back and asked him like, hey, did you want your prophets to write all of this and all of this and all of this and all of this, he probably wouldn't. I don't care about half of that stuff. Just like it's conceptual. It's conceptual. If you believe that, and you go over the important stuff I said, it doesn't matter if I actually healed a blind man. It's like the message behind everything else that I was doing. That's what you need to take to heart. It's not just like the oohs and ahs and like the pop and the flash. So I think that's where I think humans are so flawed. We got it wrong with what we were aiming for with what Jesus was doing to start with. It's like his prophets were not perfect people. They were sinners, you know, and I think that's what people need to keep in mind. And so that's why we also get down a rough road when we talk about biblical what do you call it when we think the Bible's perfect? I forget. But yeah, I went to like a Jesus school and everything, and we yeah, it's like the Bible's infallible. Yeah, it's infallible. And I was like, well, who was writing the Bible? Were they perfect people?
Who wrote that it was infallible?
Yeah, but no, that aside, like right and wrong aside, like we have to admit, like a metaphysical perspective does empower an individual in very powerful ways, like very potent ways. You know, for example, like, you know, it takes like it takes a specific kind of person to be like yelled at or be treated like unfairly to understand like the context of like why they're being treated this way, to be able to take advantage of it further down the line. And that takes like a very different kind of mindset, you know, like that's I think that's really that points to like the next stage of human evolution. Hopefully, you know, it's where every human, no matter how they're born, no matter, you know, the context of their skin color or their ethnicity or their religious base or whatever, they could understand like, you know, there's always a game being played, and you just get that, like, you know, however you're treated, it's really just a reflection of how people feel their own deficiencies.
There's definitely something there though. Like Jesus tells you to sell all your stuff and get swords, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's like over now. Jesus died, and so that means it's over now." And that's not real. And Jesus was saying like everyone has to be part of this kind of corporation or guild that is the Christ consciousness, right? He says co-heirs of Christ. So you're all like members in Christ. Like you're all equal in that kind of design, which is kind of, hey, Kurt, communistic, right? Like you might like that. But at the end of the day, the idea of making the world remove debt, it was really important because you had slavery and people were in debt 5, 6, 10 generations. So they couldn't own anything. So you had to have a jubilee. And this is what, you know, the original idea was we need to wipe all these crazy multi-generational debts to zero. And we're at that point now. We're seeing like corporations and states that have like the G10 or whatever it is. Every state owes every other state. It's this crazy, like psychedelic amount of debt. Really, it's insane how much debt exists. It's just more debt than there is man, right?
That's slavery. That's a manifestation of slavery.
So like, what do you do other than like pick up swords and say like end debt, end scarcity, and then start like manufacturing abundance so that this is how you win. Like you make sure that there's just bread flowing off the shelves. Do it, right? Stop making it possible for people to starve by having male trees in your gardens.
You have to teach people the baseline resource. It's energy, right? Like that is the baseline resource. It's energy. It's how much energy that you're giving, how much energy you're receiving, how much energy you're taking, expending, all that stuff. It's energy. It's at the end of the day, it's all energy. I mean, you were the one that said it. You were like how like consciousness is made of it's all light, right? Like awareness. First of all, you know that group. Did you make that group Advanced Memes?
Advanced Philosophy Memes.
You made that group?
That's well. So technically, what happened was, I think Alyosha and I started the group, and then he left the group.
That's
so
a sick
now it's
fucking
technically
group.
just my group.
Crazy. That's a sick fucking group, man.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. Yeah, this is a pretty weird one, but I feel like half of the group people think it's a honeypot by the NSA, and the other place people think it's like a soapbox for like every possible autistic and schizophrenic thought that they could share, which is really great. I think it helps.
No, it's a sick group. What was really funny is I watched it change over time because like I watched it go from like a strictly materialist like forum to like a very spiritual and religious thing. I was like, wow, like it's like and I don't know. I felt I was very in tune with that frequency. I was like, I get it. I feel that transition.
Well, that's good. I'm gonna pull up also Kurt's music. You should send me a link I can share. American Time Machine right here. We're getting up to like the end of the hour. Is there anything you guys wanted to make sure we share before I like send this off? I also wanted to say American Time Machine's music is psychedelic and wild, and it reminds me of John Henry fighting against the machine, right? Like he's actually winning this battle, but it could kill him. So I want you all to listen to American Time Machine's music. It's amazing. I really love it.
All right, we'll endorse it, and I'll also I'll link this the stream. What's your main platform? Would you say is this like YouTube? Is it
YouTube has my most subscribers?
All right, so it's probably YouTube then.
Yeah, but I have like a bunch of things, right? We got tartarinova.com, right? Like so. Everybody who doesn't know that about me, because you're new here, that's right. I have to remember that. Go to tartarinova.com. You can join the Matrix, which is our like uncensorable reality chat. It's also connected to our Discord. Discord's the easy pleasy. Everybody can get into the Discord. We have a huge community in the Discord as well, right? And then also, APM. You've been to APM, and it's pretty sweet. I also do. I post mostly on Twitter at this point. X.com. You can go and follow Andreas Xirtus on X. You can also find www.andreas.me. I have a website with my name on it. I am Andreas, like a mononym. So there's that. And that has links to all this stuff. You can go to Xirtus.com or Advanced Philosophy Memes or my YouTube videos, or I have merch. Also, if you need to hire me to do some graphene or something, I'll do it.
Well, there you go.
Where's your link? What can I share for you?
No, I'll put in the description on my stuff. It's just it's terror risk. It's the word terrorist with a K instead of a T at the end.
Should I go on SoundCloud, Bandcamp? Where do you want me to look for that? Or
anywhere you go on your favorite podcast, whether it's Apple or Google or YouTube or Spotify, if you just type in terror risk, it's the word terrorist, but with a K at the end instead of
okay. Here we go. Boom. Found it. Terrorist. Subscribed right here. Click like on these and make sure that everyone follows Terrorist. We'll do some more shows pretty soon, man. Yeah. So that'll be awesome.
No, it's cool. I mean, I love talking to you, man. I think your head's definitely where I like it, and I hope my head is where you like it.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
I try to be
samurai lessons next time. I'm sorry because I want to talk about samurai, but this was also really good.
No, the samurai stuff. I'm happy to talk about it. It's just it's so specific. It's so esoteric. It really is. Like I look at it like this. Like I read the Book of Five Rings by Musashi. Before I ever picked up a sword in martial arts, and I was like, this doesn't make any fucking sense to me. And then I did sword for like a few years, and then I read that book, and I was like, oh, I totally get it now. I totally get what he's saying. It's like you have to make sure to be slow and fast at the same time. I'm like, what the fuck? But then like after I was like fighting for a while, I was like, okay, I get what he's saying. Like slow, smooth is fast, and they tell it to Marines. Like I get it.
Well, memory man, I normally would play your song, but just because I have it, I just want to say everybody good night. I love you, and check out Advanced Philosophy Memes because Kurt, you're a beautiful man. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, Chris.
Good night, everybody.
Advanced Philosophy Memes.